let's get this show.
Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Today's February 5th, 2020, and the time is 7:30 p.m. Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by posting on the bulletin board in Village Hall, by mail to the Ridgewood News, the Record, and by submission to all persons entitled to same as provided by law of a schedule, including the date and time of this meeting. Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Knudsen.
Here.
Councilman Seaton.
Here.
Councilman Voigt.
Here.
Councilwoman Walsh.
Here.
Mayor Hache is absent.
Please stand for the flag salute. Before we start with public comments, I'm just going to apologize for our last week's meeting. Unbeknownst to us, all of us, I was sick, Councilman Seaton was sick, and I believe Councilman Voigt was out of town, and the flu was going around, and there was no quorum, and so we apologize for any inconvenience that may have caused to anyone who arrived here expecting that meeting. So please do accept those apologies. And with that, we'll go to public comment. Did I do a moment of silence? No, I'm sorry. Before I continue, let's have a moment of silence for our men and women serving our nation and our first responders. Sorry. Okay, thank you. And with that, we'll go to public comment, not to exceed 3 minutes for a total of 40 minutes. Come on up. And just your name and address, please. Is that, could you take a look at the there's a little button on the bottom of the microphone?
All right.
There you go.
Am I heard? Members of the council.
Sir, your name and address, please.
I can't hear you.
Your name and address.
Name and address. Walter Rothog, 558 Hillcrest Road, Ridgewood. Okay, I'm here to express my concern about an item which was on last week's agenda, which was the potential closing or partial closing of the Hohokus Hill link between Upper Ridgewood and Hohokus. I wish to express my concern about this. This is an important link between Upper Ridgewood and the businesses of Hohokus. Upper Ridgewood would be considerably more isolated without it. It is heavily used. The link is more than 100 years old. I have photographs of it seen photographs of it in operation for more than 100 years. New Jersey Transit, I don't know, because I haven't heard the report that supposedly is on your agenda tonight, but I'm questioning the credibility of New Jersey Transit. They don't have a good record, as you can see, of what happened in Penn Station earlier in this week. But we just found out about this now. Supposedly Hohokus knew about it in May. I don't know. I'm waiting for the report from the council on that. I'd like to know the results of a traffic study that they supposedly did with enhanced enforcement of that. And I haven't heard any of that result. They could make better signage. Supposedly they're concerned about trucks being on that. The signs that say no trucks are rather small. There could be painting done on the crossing itself to try to funnel the traffic across that. And anyway, it would be a better job that I think they could do a lot to enhance the safety of that without going through the step of closing it or partially closing it. And I would request the council to support Upper Ridgewood in this matter I don't know who's doing it, whether it's New Jersey Transit or the New Jersey Department of Transportation or both or that. But anyway, I would hope the council would support the community of Upper Ridgewood in this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. Bob Upton, 172 West Glen Avenue, and Green Ridgewood Committee Chair. At your January the 8th meeting of the Council, a group of young ladies addressed you eloquently in support of the Shade Tree Commission and its request to fully fund the $150,000 requested for the budget and to ensure its use for replacement of trees that have been lost over previous years. They described the importance of trees to the environment and to the community very well, so I'm not going to take your time and repeat those facts. At the last meeting of our Green Ridgewood Committee, the committee voted to support the Shade Tree Commission and speak in support of them, and again ask that you allocate those funds and ensure that they're used for the trees. So thank you for that. And on another matter of a personal nature, I noticed at that same meeting in January that there was a discussion about accidents at the intersection of North Monroe and West Glen Avenue, just up the road from my house. And at that, a number of measures were introduced, but Police Sergeant Chuck mentioned that a number of those accidents, which happened westbound on West Glen, heading up the hill, were rear-end collisions. And I'm not entirely confident that the changes that were suggested are going to do anything about rear-end collisions, and I suspect that a lot of those are due to excessive speed. I noticed people traveling at high speed both up the hill and down the hill, and at that last meeting you also discussed the flasher that was installed on North Walnut, and I wonder if I could suggest to you that that might also be a solution for West Glen to bring to people's attention the speed that they're traveling. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Ron Rosenzweig here on behalf of my client, on which I am also the president of Woodfield Realty, property owners on the corner of West Ridgewood Avenue off of Wilsey Square. I understand there's a question which was addressed several months ago. We've been waiting for some additional answers relative to the parking spaces over there. I'm here on behalf of our tenants, Westside Bagel, Davis Surgical, Puzo's Pizza. All those are very dependent on those parking spaces for people to come into the stores for only 5 or 10 minutes to pick up either a bagel, to pick up a pizza. And Davis is particularly concerned because many senior citizens use those spots to come into his store to pick up surgical supplies and items of that nature. And the removal of those spots would greatly impact all of those businesses, which would impact my business as their landlord. I believe I've heard there is some study work that's been done by the police, and I understand that it shows, except for a couple of periods of relatively small periods of time, there really is not a traffic problem there. And it seems to me that if those parking spaces are going to be taken away in any manner, it has a great impact for what is a basic, and I don't consider it an inconvenience, but some people get stuck at the light for an extra minute or so, maybe 2 20-minute periods a day at best, according to what we understand as the police study. And I would urge this body to take serious interest in those 4 businesses, and we have another one coming in, we'll be opening up shortly, as well as others who utilize those parking spaces just really quickly to come and go. And that is the lifeblood of those businesses in many cases. Yes, the pizza pickup place, the senior citizens, the bagel place, they all depend on those parking spaces, and loss of those parking spaces would impact them. And as they've said, and when they were here in earlier, I believe it was August, indicated that it might even force them to close. We'd hate to lose 4 businesses in town, and I think if that impacts me I lose revenue. If I lose revenue, the value of my property goes down, and you lose tax revenue. I think in all, keeping those 4 parking spaces is an absolute win-win. And they all would have been here tonight, but they didn't realize this was on the agenda. We thought we would get a little more notice, and I know Mark and the others said because of short notice they couldn't be here, and I myself changed my schedule to come to, again, implore you to use some sound business practical sense that those spaces should not be touched for dealing with a little traffic at 2 15 or 20-minute times a day, considering the overall impact it has on those businesses, which Mark opens at 6 or 6:30 in the morning, and Puzo's is open until 8 or 9 at night. So for 14 hours of business time, don't be harsh with them for some inconveniences from a couple of people at 2 20-minute periods of time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening. Neil Sullivan, 335 East Ridgewood Avenue. And I'm here just to make a couple of comments on pickleball, and on a heavyweight subject. But I've become, in the last couple of years, a very avid pickleball player. It's a great sport. I learned to play taking lessons through Ridgewood Recreation Department. In fact, the instruction there was excellent. The instructor is right here, Maddie. And I wanted to thank the town for putting in a first-class pickleball over there at Glen School. I think it's the only one of its kind. Every one I've ever seen has to be a reconstructed or redesigned tennis court or something of that nature. So I want to thank the council for doing that. One thing I noticed about pickleball, when I play anyway, there's so many senior citizens playing. I don't think I've ever seen that many people of that age group playing so avidly and actively a sport, which I think is great in any community for various reasons. I understand that this might have been discussed before. The first I've heard of it concerning the noise, and that's sympathetic. You're in a neighborhood and all, and so. But in some ways, no good deed goes unpunished. There's always consequences, unsuspected consequences. So I would just wish the council, I see you have some sort of muffling soundboard or tarpaulin or something, but some way there could be a compromise here. There's going to be some noise, even if you're playing tennis. I play tennis too, and you're playing tennis on a court, there are people making noises. There's going to be noise. But if that could be reduced to almost an acceptable level, or at least a middle ground to compromise on both sides, I would make that as a suggestion. Again, thank you for putting the pickleball courts in there.
So Doug Roten, 50-year Ridgewood resident, 120 Melrose Place. I'm sure this is the first time you've had pickleball brought up 2 times in a meeting. So I'm also an avid pickleball player, and I concur with everything Neil said, and I won't repeat it. And I know that you're, in a tough spot because there's 2 sides to every story, and it's a very subjective topic. So I really wanted to talk to you about something different. I pulled the noise resolution verbiage today, and I think when I think of noise, I think of a very objective, very measurable thing. But the words you use in this are very subjective: unreasonable, unreasonably loud, disturbing noise, prohibited noise of such character. And I think you could make it a lot more objective. So I did a little research online today, and what a lot of towns are doing, a growing number of towns are doing, is they're making their resolutions very objective. They're getting decibel measurers, meters. They're going and measuring the sound of all the different sports from different distances. There's, I won't bore you with the material, but there's enough material online that you certainly can find out what the norm is. And you can pull evidence on both sides, right? There are tests that say that pickleball is above the norm, and there's tests that say that it's below the noise of taking a shower. But I think, I'm sure that this noise thing comes up all the time, every time you put a new field in, you do different events at different fields. And I think you would do yourself a big favor if you just made it a very objective resolution. 8 or whatever the time is to 10 o'clock, They take two metrics, an hourly average decibel, and that ranges from 45 to 60 or 65. And then, a event, so a spiky event, crack of a bat, crack of a pickleball, and that measures somewhere between 50 and 75. They also sell very inexpensively alarms, not sound alarms, but when you reach a certain decibel over a period of time, it shines a light and the people in that event understand that they're being too loud. You could also make it more objective of the number of people that could be on a pickleball court. Because I think, the sound, like I've stood outside of gyms that we play in, I can't hear the pickleball. But what I can hear is people yelling and, hey, what a great. So I think, notices posted that have times, the number of people that can be there, and the type of noise that they can contribute, objectivized, I think you'd be doing yourself a favor.
So are you willing to share your research?
I sent it to the Parks Department today, but if you give me who to send it to, I'm happy to send it.
Right to the village clerk.
Okay.
We'll get you the email, and we can send it. Whatever you have, we'd be happy to look at it. I think it's important.
I was going to take notes. This is not.
Oh, okay. Fine. You can go right on the website and get the email address. Or
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Good evening, Ann Loving, 342 South Irving Street. I'm here to talk about an item that's under policy, number 5, the update on grade and pool hours of operation. Actually, there's nothing in the yellow binder about it. There's something on pickleball courts which precedes that on the agenda, and something on the anti-idling policy which comes right after it. So I can only go on what has been said at previous meetings, and also some information I got from the Parks Department. It was stated that they were going to reduce the hours of Graydon, never mind hours, the days, the weeks of Graydon, and the primary reason given was that it's difficult to get guards. College students go back to college, high school students, whatever. This is completely wrong to do this. Subsequent to the meeting where this was discussed, I saw an advertisement for a parking enforcement agent that was more than $18 an hour. Now, I'm not knocking what the parking enforcement agents get paid. I'm not here to discuss that at all. But no lives are at stake when parking tickets are being given out. The Graydon guards have to go through extremely rigorous training. They're very talented swimmers. They have to go through additional training in order to be able to do life-saving in a lake situation. They start at $9.50 an hour. I thought that was below the minimum wage, but I found out that that's state minimum wage for seasonal part-time. I don't know if there's a term for ageism, discrimination against young people, but this strikes me as outrageous to pay such a low wage to people whose lives, the lives of all the people at the pool are depending on them. Hopefully not often, maybe, hopefully not ever, but it's always that potential. My grandchildren take swim at the Y for the last 10-plus years. Most often, their teachers, are adults, not young adults, but, for example, the man that's been teaching my grandson this year is probably in his 50s. I would imagine if you were paying a wage to the guards upwards of $18 or more an hour, you might be able to get adults that weren't going back to college the last week of August. The other thing is, Graydon makes money. It's the only park, to my knowledge, that actually makes money. All the other parks cost money because leaves have to be picked up and garbage has to be picked up. I walk around vets all the time now, and I see them out there cleaning the garbage and doing this and that. That costs money. Graydon makes money. We need to spend a little more money to get whatever we need in terms of guards so that the hours won't be cut. Put the rates up last year. I don't know if the rates are going up again this year, but you can't put the rates up and then cut us by weeks. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Oh, come on.
Good evening. Carolyn Jacoby, 160 Godwin Avenue. a longtime resident and also a Shade Tree Commission member, and I'm here to thank the council for the consideration and the support for our critically important, much-needed tree inventory, and for supporting the funding of this and to ensure that we are able to move forward with this in a very timely way. Hopefully this could begin in a month or so, and we could have information that will allow us to know exactly what the municipal tree canopy is and what needs to be done to sustain it and to grow it and to increase it. And I want to thank Bob Upton and the Green Team for their support. We're all in this together. And also around the pickleboard courts, trees are a tremendous noise abatement vehicle. Very easy to do. Plant more trees. And thank you for your consideration. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Good evening.
Hello, Ian Keller, 140 Cottage Place.
Sir, could you speak into the microphone, please? Thank you.
Ian Keller, 140 Cottage Place. I would just like to second Carolyn's comments. Here, I've been serving on the Shade Tree Commission, and we've done quite a bit of work over the last few years to put in place the steps, like to take all the steps necessary in order to have a tree inventory completed. And we've teed it up for you, and we hope you support us in that. It'll be a great resource for you to manage. It's hard to manage a resource if you don't know what you have. This will tell us exactly what we have. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. Joe Ferranti, 610 Hillcrest Road. So about 3 years ago, I was here. And 3 years ago, the Willard community put together in 5 days over 400 signatures of families who were opposed to disrupting the status quo of the Glenwood Road. And those same families, many of them authored letters to the New Jersey DOT. So now we get the response from the DOT. And the DOT characterizes the bulk of those letters as expressions of inconvenience. Inconvenience. Incredible. I would equate inconvenience with maybe putting no parking signs up on a certain road, or maybe limiting the hours of through traffic in certain areas of the town, like on Walthery. But this is not inconvenience. What's happening here is a disruption. This is a significant disruption of a historic pattern between neighborhoods. And it's pretty incredible. The kind of the cavalier attitude that the state DOT has exhibited in that report, which I read. Thank you to Mr. Rogers for providing me with a copy of that report. You know, it's not just romanticism to talk about the relationship between neighborhoods. When we moved up here over 40 years ago, we had a neighbor on Hillcrest Road who had been born in the house. She was an elderly woman. Her name was Evangeline Klug. And she used to tell us about tales of how she would get in a little wagon and ride down that hill to go to the Undercliff neighborhood and shop, bring groceries back up that hill. This was something that almost predated the railroad. And that pattern that was established around the turn of the 19th century into the 20th century has maintained itself, as you know, for over 150 years. So for the state to say, we can do this, we can make it a one-way, the relationship is a two-way. You know, relationships between people and neighborhoods are two-way, not one-way. And you have to maintain that two-way pattern to maintain that relationship. I was concerned when we started down this road a few years ago that the start point was, well, we're going to prevent it from being closed entirely, or let's settle on one way. Well, that's a bad starting point. What we should be asking, and a question I'm not sure that it ever has been asked, is what will it take to preserve this very vital link between neighborhoods? And I wonder if the council is prepared to ask that question and ask it vigorously. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Good evening. I'm Mary Meekum, 630 Morningside Road. And just to follow up on what Joe had said about the road down to the train station, I can't tell you how often I use it. It's just my normal pattern, my daily events. I was just noticing one thing I've been concerned about is the traffic that is now going down and up that hill is going to be diverted to either Glen or in Waldwick on, I guess that's Wyckoff Ave. A lot of traffic comes from the Ridgewood residents who live in our area, my area, getting off the train at night and having someone pick them up. And I could just envision all these cars parked at the top of the hill, which is a four-way intersection, waiting, where you would pick someone up from a train. You're not going to go down if you can't come back up. So there are so many different issues here, which I think you probably have heard most of them. But that was just a new one that occurred to me tonight, is that you're going to have lines of cars just standing, not parked, but standing, waiting to pick up their people from the train. I think, when we think about it being a dangerous road, there are a lot of other roads and intersections in Ridgewood that I definitely consider more dangerous. So I really would like them to consider both those issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Okay. If that's it, we will close public comments. And just on a couple of notes, just in terms of that, the DOT issue, we are certainly looking at all of our options, and I'm confident that the entire council, our village manager, our attorney, everyone has read the documents quite thoroughly. I know that Councilman Voigt had a letter, I believe, to the editor, and has had some communication, I guess, via Facebook. We hear our residents, and Joe, I'm just going to disagree a little bit. I think at the outset, when we started down this road 3 years ago, our expectation was we were working to keep it open both ways. We weren't looking to negotiate anything on it. And just for myself, I had requested the village engineer and the village manager Oprah documents from the DOT relative to any incidents that were witnessed, any incident reports, any information that would be available that substantiated the report. So we are doing everything we can possibly do to avoid this situation. I don't know if anyone else has anything to add to that.
Yeah, well, I do. I'm really concerned. This is something that came out of the blue, and we didn't hear about it until a few weeks ago from, and actually, I guess, Hohokus knew about it well in advance and shocked that they hadn't given it to us. And I see it as a major disruption for that area. I have major concerns about where the traffic's going to go, most especially on West Glen. That's going to make it significantly much more trafficked and dangerous. I know the flashing light at Oak and West Glen is really difficult to get across. It's going to make it even worse. It's going to make it worse for people going up and down the hill, and I think it's going to be a major disruption for our town. And I'm hoping we can do anything and everything to stop this, and that includes hopefully more enforcement, both from our side and from Hohokus' side. I think we need to work together on this and to figure out a way that we can make that road safer so we don't have people making K-turns in the train tracks. and I'm hoping that we can do this in the very near future and then work with NJDOT to stop this. So.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just, echo the comments that you both made. It's unfortunate. We talk about it in citizen safety. We talk about it all the time that others are often bad behavior of some causes a ripple effect on others. So, unfortunately for this situation, some people who maybe were bad drivers and weren't following road signs and the like caused some pretty severe issues, not just for the village of Ridgewood, but let's be honest, it's going to be for Waldwick and it's going to be for anybody that's along, North Maple Avenue. So, we're hoping that we can come to some sort of a resolution. My worry is that that they may take their marbles and go home and close it for good. So we have to, find some balance with them. So that's what I'm hoping.
In terms of the 15-minute parking spaces, I was under the impression, just based on the materials, we'll get to that in a little bit, that was just housekeeping issues. Pickleball, all good. We like pickleball. We're working just with the acoustics, and again, we'll get to that. And grading, we'll see what we have to say on that. So with that, we're going to move on to the manager's report.
Okay. The Hudson Street Garage, great news. The crane has been moved to the work site, and the precast panels are beginning to be put into place. This part of the project is approximately 7 weeks, intermittent, weather permitting. There will be closures of South Broad Street and Hudson Street during the day. South Broad will be intermittent, but both streets will be open for vehicles in the evening. A parking rate increase went into effect on February 1st, which is $1.25 per hour on the streets and $1 per hour in the lots. Village Council candidate packets are available in the Village Clerk's office. The completed forms are due to the Village Clerk's office by March 9th at 4 p.m. There are 3 Village Council seats up for election. There's an opportunity to be a poll worker on Election Day. It's $200 for the day. They're looking for poll workers for June 2nd or November 3rd. The hours are from 5:30 a.m. to 8:30 p.m. You must be at least 18 years old, a Bergen County resident. You must be registered to vote. You must attend a 2-hour training class. If you're interested, please call the Bergen County Board of Elections office in Hackensack, and they would gladly accommodate you. You could most likely work in Ridgewood and most likely in your own neighborhood. So I encourage you to look into that if you're interested. Parking kiosks are being installed throughout the Central Business District. This project should be completed by the end of February, weather permitting. At the kiosk, you enter your license plate number and pay using coins or credit card with a 3% convenience fee. You do not have to display the receipt on your windshield. The 15-minute parking spaces at the top of each block will continue to have parking meters. Village offices will be closed on February 12th in observance of Lincoln's birthday and February 17th in observance of President's Day. There will be no garbage or recycling pickup on these days, and the recycling center will also be closed. In preparation for the summer and the need for certified lifeguards at Graydon Pool, the American Red Cross is advertising their waterfront lifeguard training for a sand bottom facility. Classes of those for 16 and up are held in May and June at Graydon Pool. For further details, please contact Ridgewood Recreation at the stable. Again, the single-use plastic bags are banned in Ridgewood. This includes supermarkets, restaurants, street fairs, and farmers markets. Certain plastic bags are exempt, and we thank the residents for helping us preserve the environment. The upcoming Village Council meetings are February 19th is our public meeting, so it's 2 weeks from tonight. February 26th is a Village Council work session, and then March 4th is a Village Council work session.
Thank you. Moving on, Councilman Seaton.
Nothing to report, Deputy Mayor. Thank you.
Okay. Councilman Walsh.
Thank you, Mayor, Deputy Mayor. I wanted to just talk about the library a little bit. So we had our reorganization meeting. The new slate is President Gail Campbell, Vice President is Vic Aurora, Treasurer is Dan Cumming, and Secretary is Janice Furman. We had a lengthy discussion about the application for the library grant that's been offered by the state. They are endeavoring to try and get all the materials together as quickly as possible, including updated architect's drawings or schematics to be able to bring back to the council. The challenge for us is that we have a lack of time and a lack of meetings. So it looks like we're going to try and bring it back to the February 26th council meeting so that the council can take a look at the plans that are going to be put in with the application. So the application they're trying to get out the first week in March, so it's imperative that we get on this calendar and that they can get everything that they can get and approved on our end. There are a couple of things that will need to be signed, so I think that they're going to coordinate with the village manager with regards to that. So I don't think that that's going to have to come back to the council because that's just a matter of basically signing some other papers. But that's about all I have for the library right now. Thanks.
That's it. Councilman Boyd?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. CSAC had its meeting on the 16th this past month. West Glen and Monroe residents attended and expressed concern about that intersection. There were plans presented on the upgrading to take place this year. Hopefully, the money's been put in the budget. We have one opening on the committee which needs to be filled. I believe we have several residents who have expressed interest. Interest continues to remain on the Franklin Ave corridor upgrade, and Chris Rudeshauser has been kind enough to update us on that. Starbucks continues to be an issue with the driveway, both the entrance and exits. I'm hoping we can get that resolved fairly soon. The Community Center Advisory Board met on the 23rd of January. A number of events that are coming up. First of all, the Taub Foundation will be funding Age Friendly for 2 more years based on the good works that they're doing, so that's great to hear. Upcoming, we have a very busy schedule here over the next month or so. Upcoming presentations and events, March 2nd, Soups On at Health Barn, which is 11:30 to 1 p.m., $10 per resident, $20 for non-residents. They will take up to 8 to 10 people. March 3rd, 6:30 p.m., the library auditorium, we have Irina Shea, an elder attorney, presenting on elder issues. March 5th, 10 a.m., we have at the community center, From Suffrage to the ERA, $5 per resident. April 22nd, we have at 6:30 p.m. in the library auditorium, Medicare 101 with Sheila Brogan. May 6th, we have at 7 p.m. a woman named Mary Cregan who will present on her book called The Scar, which is about her depression and her attempted suicide. Very interesting talk. Upcoming student mixers at the community center, April 17th, 7:30 to 9 p.m. 6th grade mixer, music and pizza. May 1st, 7th and 8th grades, silent disco. And then May 20th, they put earphones on and dance around, nobody hears them, which is Deanna likes that, I think. She likes the silent disco. It does. Okay, well, that's good, yeah. Everyone gets one, right? All right. A really fun event. May 29th, 6:30 to 7:30, and 8 to 9 p.m., there is an event called Step Up for the 5th graders to meet future classmates at BF and GW. And I think that's it. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. And I just have a couple of items. The planning board meeting last night was canceled. However, the master plan subcommittee did meet. We went over draft of our visioning and master plan documents. And right now we're in the process of just making sure all our data points are correct and the information is accurate. And we anticipate that will go to the planning board for review, and then the committee will be doing a presentation here before the village council. We anticipate that, I believe, early March. I know there was an item on the visioning website that indicated a draft would be made available to the public this Friday. It's not happening this Friday because it actually had to go to the planning board and village council presentation first. And the Arts Council will meet Tuesday evening. 7:30 right here in the caucus room. The Arts Council is working on a couple of exciting projects. One is an outdoor art exhibit, sculpture exhibit at Graydon on the off-season, which is kind of exciting, and we're meeting here tomorrow with the village manager and Nancy Bigos to just discuss the logistics of that plan and whether or not it's doable. And the Arts Council will also be working on a project on the garage. I know the panel for the front of the garage, the face of the garage, will be installed next week, and the Ridgewood Arts Council will be looking at design options for customized artwork that will go into the recessed piece of that, which is about 18 by 5. And so they're going to be discussing that Tuesday evening, and it's a really exciting opportunity for the Arts Council and artists throughout the village to promote and exhibit their artwork. And I think that is it for me, and with that, we will move on.
Right, our next item actually is suspending the work session and convening the special public meeting.
Oh, we're going right to, I'm sorry, I didn't see it was removed from agenda. So I'm paperless right now, so I'm just appreciate everyone's patience. Okay. Got it. Adequate notice of this meeting. Oh, motion to suspend the.
Do I have a motion?
Yep.
So moved.
Second.
Newton,
Yes.
Seaton,
Yes.
Voigt,
Yes.
Walsh,
Yes.
and Hache is absent.
Very good. We are calling to order a special public meeting. Today is February 5th, 2020, and the time is 8:11. Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by a posting on the bulletin board in Village Hall, by mail to the Ridgewood News of Record, and by submission to all persons entitled to the same as provided by law of schedule, including the date and time of this meeting. Roll call.
Newton,
Here.
Seaton,
Here.
Voigt,
Here.
Walsh,
Here.
Mayor Hache is absent.
I move the clerk read ordinance 3771 by title on second reading, and the public hearing thereon be open.
Second.
Newton,
Yes.
Seaton,
Yes.
Voigt,
Yes.
Walsh,
Yes.
Hache, absent.
Will the clerk please read the title of ordinance 3771?
An ordinance to amend salary ordinance 3752, fixing salaries, wages, and other compensation to establish the employee agreement of certain non-union officers and employees of the Village of Ridgewood, County of Bergen, and State of New Jersey for the year 2019.
The public hearing is now open. I move the public hearing be closed.
Second.
Newton,
Yes.
Seaton,
Yes.
Voigt,
Yes.
Walsh,
Yes.
Hache is absent.
I move that ordinance 3771 be adopted on second reading and final publication as required by law.
Second.
Newton,
Yes.
Seaton,
Yes.
Voigt,
Yes.
Walsh,
Yes.
Hache is absent.
I move the clerk read ordinance 3772 by title on second reading, the public hearing thereon be open.
Second.
Newton,
Yes.
Seaton,
Yes.
Voigt,
Yes.
Walsh,
Yes.
Hache is absent.
Will the clerk please read the title of ordinance 3772?
An ordinance to amend salary ordinance 3753, fixing salaries, wages, and other compensation of non-union employees of the Village of Ridgewood, County of Bergen, and State of New Jersey for the year 2019.
The public hearing is now open. I move the public hearing be closed.
Second.
Newton,
Yes.
Seaton,
Yes.
Voigt,
Yes.
Walsh,
Yes.
Hache is absent.
I move that ordinance 3772 be adopted on second reading and final publication as required by law.
Second.
Newton,
Yes.
Seaton,
Yes.
Voigt,
Yes.
Walsh,
Yes.
Hache is absent.
I move the clerk read ordinance 3773 by title on second reading and the public hearing thereon be open.
Second.
Newton,
Yes.
Seaton,
Yes.
Voigt,
Yes.
Walsh,
Yes.
Hache is absent.
Will the clerk please read the title of ordinance 3773?
An ordinance to amend Chapter 265 of the Code of the Village of Ridgewood, Vehicles and Traffic, at Section 265-33, Permit Parking.
The public hearing is now open. I I move the public hearing be closed.
Second.
Knutson.
Yes.
Seaton.
Yes.
Boyd.
Yes.
Walsh.
Yes.
Hache is absent.
I move that ordinance 3773 be adopted on second reading and final publication as required by law.
Second.
Knutson.
Yes.
Seaton.
Yes.
Boyd.
Yes.
Walsh.
Yes.
Hache is absent.
I move the clerk read ordinance 3774 by title on second reading and the public hearing thereon be open.
Second.
Knutson.
Yes.
Seaton.
Yes.
Boyd.
Yes.
Walsh.
Yes.
Hache is absent.
Will the clerk please read the title of ordinance 3774?
An ordinance to amend Chapter 265 of the Code of the Village of Ridgewood, Vehicles and Traffic at Section 265-29, Parking Meter Zone Designated.
Public hearing is now open. Move the public hearing be closed.
Second.
Knutson.
Yes.
Seaton.
Yes.
Boyd.
Yes.
Walsh.
Yes.
Hache is absent.
I move that ordinance 3774 be adopted on second reading and final publication as required by law.
Second.
Knutson.
Yes.
Seaton.
Yes.
Boyd.
Yes.
Walsh.
Yes.
Hache is absent.
And resolutions?
The following resolutions, number 20-25 through 20-26, are to be adopted by a consent agenda with one vote by the Village Council. Each resolution will be read by title only. 20-25, appoint members to Project Pride Committee. 20-26, appoint members to Stigma-Free Task Force.
Motion?
May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Knutson.
Yes.
Seaton.
Yes.
Boyd.
Yes.
Walsh.
Yes.
Hache is absent.
Okay. We're going to take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Knutson.
Yes.
Seaton.
Yes.
Boyd.
Yes.
Walsh.
Yes.
And Hache is absent.
Okay. And we're back again. And with that, I think
Our first item is a presentation from New Jersey Future, and so I have Tanya Rohrbeck come up at this time.
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak about the work that Ridgewood is doing in terms of aging-friendly community building. So I've prepared a presentation, and then if you have any questions about the work that we're doing, please feel free to ask.
so just if you don't mind, do you want to just, I don't think I heard your name. Did I?
Oh, okay. Tanya Rohrbach. I'm Community Planning Manager at New Jersey Future.
Great, thank you.
So first, I'll just talk a little bit about New Jersey Future and the work that we're doing or that we do. We are a nonprofit, non-government organization, and we're mission-driven, and our main concern is the responsible and sustainable use of land. So we work to promote smart and sustainable land use policies and practices. So if you may wonder, why are we, if our focus is land use, why are we focused on aging-friendly work? Well, our research into this started a few years ago with funding from the Henry and Marilyn Taub Foundation, who is funding the current project in Ridgewood also, where the question was asked, how well can people sort of how can people stay in their communities? How will they be able to be engaged and be able to afford living in their communities in the kind of communities that New Jersey has, being of a sprawling kind of development pattern in many places? So Ridgewood is actually in a good position because it's a rather compact kind of community form, but a lot of places in New Jersey have development patterns that are not conducive for people as they begin to age. So a research project was done looking into this, and 2 reports were produced, one called Creating Places to Age in New Jersey, and another one about housing affordability regarding some towns in northern New Jersey. And the reason that we're looking at the aging population specifically is because we're in the middle of a demographic shift right now. So as you can see from these bar charts, looking from the light blue to the dark blue, there's an increase in the demographic of age 50 and older. And in the next 10 years, we'll see an increase in the demographic for 65 and older. And this is a result of the baby boomers aging into that older age group. So what we're seeing is a shift in the proportion of our population. So about 30% of the population in the state and in most communities in the state is now age 55 and older. So this is just a question then says, how can we meet the needs of this aging population? What can communities do? What can towns do to meet their needs? And then you would ask, well, what are their needs? And most surveys will indicate that people would like to stay in their communities as they age, preferably in their current home, but if not, they would like options for housing, for a diversity and a variety of housing, to downsize to a smaller, more affordable housing, and also to remain engaged in a community through working and volunteering in a community. So what New Jersey Future has set out to do is evaluate communities in terms of meeting the needs for an older population in relation to land use patterns. And so New Jersey Future has developed a methodology to assess a community based on these 4 land use categories: housing, transportation, mixed use center, and public spaces and amenities that are available. So the point here is that the form of a community can determine whether it's harder or easier for a person to be able to stay in a community as they age and to be able to stay engaged in a community as they age. So these are the kinds of things that could be barriers. Housing's an issue for many people in the state in terms of affordability, but particularly for an aging population as people become on a fixed income, have mobility issues and things like that. Auto dependency, people tend to drive less, be less able to drive, have less desire to drive as they age. So having a community that people can get around, do their tasks, meet their needs, go to the doctor, engage with people without having to drive. So transportation and mobility options. And then, having public spaces and gathering spaces for recreation, exercise, and again, community engagement. Because as people age, there is unfortunately a risk for social isolation as it becomes harder to get out and get around. So these are the kinds of barriers or issues that exist for people in communities. And New Jersey is a home rule state, so it is the municipal decision makers that will determine what the form of the community is. So we have 565 municipalities, so each one of those municipalities can sort of set the standards and set the vision for communities and how a community will grow and the form a community will take. And these are the mechanisms that, as you well know, master planning, zoning, building codes, regulations, capital budget. These are the things that towns can do or look at to be able to address some of those concerns and needs for an aging population. And it is those things, those decisions that are going to determine the form that a community takes. So New Jersey Future's Aging Friendly program has 2 components. One is that we do land use assessments at the local level with municipalities, and then the next phase is implementation planning. Ridgewood has had an assessment done. I'll just describe the components of that assessment, and so you have a sense of the background of where we're coming from in the process now. Now we are in the implementation planning phase with Ridgewood. So the assessment process is an engagement process. It's not that we want to go into a town and prescribe what a town should do. It's not our project or our vision. This is really something that the community owns. So we really have 3 steps, and one is to inform and engage the community through information. So we hold information sessions similar to what I'm doing tonight, giving presentations, workshops, describing what an aging-friendly community would look like or could look like. And then that engagement process through a project committee. We prepare demographic profiles and share that with the project committee, and then engage the stakeholders both from the municipality, the local decision makers, as well as community stakeholders, because it is important to have those 2 groups talk to each other. And then we get feedback through that engagement process to then go on and do that aging-friendly assessment in terms of those 4 categories, and the assessment indicates recommendations. So it includes recommendations for actions or strategies that the town could take to improve those aspects in terms of aging friendliness. So I'll describe a little bit about each of those 4 categories. The first is the mixed-use centers. What we're looking for here is whether a town has a mixed-use center, and of course Ridgewood has a beautiful mixed-use center, or town center. So we're looking for that downtown environment. And when we say mixed-use, we're looking for a mix of retail, different types of retail establishment, but also residential. So to have residential in the downtown, that would allow people to be closer to destinations, to live closer to destinations, improves walkability, improves vibrancy of the downtown, because you have more foot traffic, and can also provide more affordable housing or different housing types and options in the community. So we're looking for that sort of thing. And then our recommended strategies would be town-specific for ways that the town could sort of create that kind of downtown environment, with walkability being a priority, pedestrian-oriented, and a mix of uses. The next is housing. So over 40% of New Jersey's households are housing cost burdened, which means simply that they are spending more than 30% of their income on housing. And for older residents, that is higher. It's more than 50%. So as people become older, they are spending more of their income on housing and become more at risk of becoming housing cost burden. Ridgewood is a little less than the state, but for not so much for the 65 and older population. Still about 45% of the population in Ridgewood is housing cost burden. So for housing, what we're looking at is whether there are options for housing that's affordable, things like inclusionary zoning, but also just a variety of housing. So apartments, smaller units, other types beyond single-family detached larger homes. So we're looking at that type of thing, and then our recommendations would be town-specific to try to find ways to diversify housing and promote affordability of housing. So in this graph, we can see that similar to the state, 80% of housing in Ridgewood is single-family detached housing. So thinking about how to create other types of housing that may be more suitable for people as they age and need to downsize to a smaller or a more accessible home, either accessible within the home in terms of universal design and mobility needs, or accessible to destinations and to the community as well. Transportation, what we're looking for here is, like I said, whether somebody needs a car to get around town. These two images, the one on the left, see an interconnected street network, pretty easy to get from where you need to go to your, from where you are to your destination, whether you're walking or driving. And the image on the right, which isn't as much the case in a town like Ridgewood, but you have a situation where you can see your destination. It's very close by, but it's difficult to get there walking, so you would have to drive just because of the network. There isn't a walkway, there isn't a sidewalk, something like that. So we're looking for that connectivity, and also whether other modes of transportation exist, like shuttles and buses and things like that. We also look at safety in terms of the vehicle speed and the width of the road and the number of lanes in a road. So we assess that in each town and make those town-specific recommendations, including specific places where crosswalks or sidewalks need addressing for safety issues or repair, thinking about seating along walking routes, lighting, other modes of transportation like bike lanes, and then other alternatives like transportation and shuttles. And then complete streets. Always, a lot of towns have their complete streets policies, but don't necessarily implement them, so we make recommendations on how to do that. And lastly, with the public spaces and amenities, here, same thing, looking for an interconnected network and system of public spaces and amenities. And this is, again, so that people have opportunities to get out easily, not having to drive, can make it sort of a daily thing to get out in the community, whether it's to a library, a community center, or a park, or a trail, and that all neighborhoods do have some access to that connected internetwork of places there. So the recommendations we make would be to enhance the existing facilities or fill the gaps for that network. So when we do these assessments, we do site visits, we work with the project committee and do interviews, we review plans and policies, and we also do mapping for things like proximity to bus stations or train stations, but also to open spaces and recreation sites and libraries and community centers and things like that. And we identify where there might be gaps and then make recommendations for filling those gaps in terms of things like joint use agreements or acquisition or enhancing town property to create a walkway and a pathway. So we seek those ways to create that interconnected network for the entire community. So that's what we do in our assessments, and we have created an assessment that I hope you all have had the opportunity to read for Ridgewood. I think I need to point it over there. So our next phase then is the implementation planning, and that's where we are now with Ridgewood. And I'll describe, what implementation planning is and why it's important and why we don't just sort of take those assessment recommendations and kind of expect them to happen. Implementation planning is really important because it sets the blueprint for the steps that need to get done to meet the goals. So what we're doing is we're going through first a process of prioritizing the recommendations and then identifying specific things that could be done to achieve a specific goal. And what it ultimately does is lay out who's responsible for what strategy, what would be the timeline, what would be potential funding sources, the potential cost, estimated cost. And this is a process that will help move toward implementation, but it's also a process that helps build support for the initiative and the projects as well. Again, it includes the municipal leaders, the staff, those folks who might be doing the work, engineer, a planner, as well as community members and stakeholders. And then we encourage public information sessions like this one and public meetings also to bring in the entire community to the process. So what we're looking for is having a well thought out plan for action to move forward, because we don't want that assessment to just kind of sit there and collect dust. We want it to actually lead to change and benefit in the community. So generally, this is our process. We've been through the assessment. With Ridgewood, we've been prioritizing the recommendations. We're doing public engagement tonight, and we'll continue to do that. And then we're going to begin to identify the very specific action steps, whether that be to work with the DOT or get an estimate for something, work with the rec department, whatever it may be. And then we want to continue to get that feedback from the municipality in terms of, the folks that may have to implement some of these things, like if you're putting benches in, or if you're improving a crosswalk or a sidewalk, your public works department and your engineer will need to be involved in that conversation. We don't want to lay out steps that are just not feasible or practical or doable in the town, and have this public conversation, and then develop the plan, implement the parts that the town wants to implement, and then look back and monitor and measure and see what adjustments could be made. So that's a general sort of good best practices for implementation planning. It's an iterative, flexible process. There's no sort of obligation for anything. Nothing's written in stone. It really is just a process. And another benefit and purpose of this process is to help to integrate this idea or this lens of aging friendliness into municipal decision making, into sort of the everyday planning and practices of the town, to think about these other aspects with this consideration of aging friendliness. So to kind of integrate that into the decision making at the local level is another part of what we're doing with this project. So as I mentioned, best practices. So this is what we're trying to do with the implementation planning. We want to act on the strategies. We want to engage the community. We want to integrate these concepts into municipal planning and policies, promote the work that you're doing because you want to get recognition for the good work that you're doing, and the work that the aging-friendly community is doing. And then, you always want to be monitoring and thinking about what's working, what's not working, and where can we improve, where are the challenges, where are the opportunities. So, again, it's a process is what we're doing here. And so this is what the the project committee that's doing the aging-friendly work in Ridgewood with us is working based off of. We have our sort of recommended strategies from the assessment, and they're fairly general in terms of, some of them are specific, but fairly general in terms of a strategy, the kind of thing you want to do. Think about alternative housing options, for example, improve pedestrian safety. Those are rather vague. So we want to bring those down to an actionable item. So we're using a framework of SMART objectives. So for each of the recommendations, the project committee identifies a SMART objective, and SMART being specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and having some sort of time frame or timeline for accomplishment. So we got our specific objective, and then we want to assess or prioritize that based on basically how much impact will it have, how important is it to the town, and then also how feasible is it. Some things are wonderful and great that we'd want to do them, but it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen because it's not going to have support. It's not going to happen because we're not going to have funding. We don't have capacity, things like that. So we're not going to say that should be your top priority, do that, if that's just not workable. So those are that's the balancing act. Some things may not be feasible right now, but maybe in the future, right? So you want to think about it in that context. So we're using our SMART objectives and our sort of impact feasibility grid to prioritize our assessment recommendations. And so we held a workshop back in September, I believe it was, and the project committee from Ridgewood and also Teaneck and Westwood were at this workshop. And what we did was we did a dot voting exercise and had each of the recommendations from the assessment written out on sheets on the wall, and every participant got 5 dots and needed to put 1 dot under each of 5 things that they thought were top priority for the town, because there were about 30 recommendations in the assessment. So we did that exercise. We had a discussion and got a lot of feedback on what the community thinks is important, what is already happening in the town, those kinds of things. And then, so taking that and there's actually 4 sheets, but they didn't fit on the PowerPoint slide. But, you get sort of a graphic image from this dot voting exercise where you can see graphically what are the things that are priorities, what's important to this project committee. So based on this, based on the discussion, based on also asking, follow-up questions to the project committee, well, what do you think you would work on? What's feasible for somebody to sort of take on as a champion to do this implementation work or promotion? So taking all of that, I developed a priorities matrix. So draft matrix at first, sort of ranking those recommendations, high, moderate, low priority, and then brought that back to the project committee. So again, going through that process, and then, sort of worked through to ultimately come to a recommendations priority chart, which I believe that the project committee is going to present to the council next month, I believe. So it is from that priorities matrix that will work to develop that implementation plan that has those sort of specific steps and action steps to getting closer to implementation for the high priority items on the list. And this is, what it will look like in terms of the implementation plan would be much more specific, where you've got a specific step, who could be the potential partners, what's the estimated cost, potential funding and timeline. So it's the process with the project committee that ultimately gets to sort of that blueprint and series of steps to follow for the things that were identified as higher priority in that assessment. So in terms of our timeline and what we're doing with the project, we formed the project committee, had that planning workshop, prioritized the assessment report, developing actions. We're in the process of doing that. We had another meeting. We had a couple follow-up meetings to evaluate those strategies and finalize that implementation matrix. And right here, we're at that second to last step where we are engaging the council. I'll be talking to the planning board also. And if there are more public engagement meetings, that's also an option. So this process can continue on the part of the town through sort of engagement, and I will be working with the project committee to draft that implementation plan based on everything that has happened thus far in terms of the prioritization and the feedback from the town and from the committee and any public as well. And as I said, there's no obligations to implement actions. This is just a plan for implementing actions that have been identified by the project committee as being important for the aging-friendly initiative in the town. And so we should be wrapping up this project around the fall, early winter of this year. So any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Tanya. So sure, well, questions, Jeff? Councilman Boyd?
Thank you. Just an observation of the four top ones that you have. 3 of them have to do with walking and outdoors, which kind of says, I think, a lot about the village, is that people want to be outdoors and they want to exercise. And that's kind of a nice thing to see. So,
I think it's great. I think it's great the enthusiasm that the project team is showing and the genuine desire to make this a better place for that kind of community, that sense of community, of being out and being engaged in the community.
Yeah, and another observation is, I mean, those developments that are going to be up and running here pretty soon, we're going to have a lot of people downtown, and we're going to need to address the walkability of the downtown. That's going to be very important. So, yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Tanya. Thank you for coming back.
Yes, no problem.
So, you know, obviously the walkability, that's something that's really big in Ridgewood, but I think the other thing, I work with a lot of people who are contractors who retired years ago and came back to do contract work because they retired and then felt that they were a little too idle. So I think that's a big piece of it, to be able to maybe somehow be able to either work in the community or have access to, whether it's going on the train up to Ramsey or to another town, if they get to the point where they don't want to drive or don't feel comfortable driving. So I think that is a big factor. I was surprised that that wasn't more on the dots there, because I feel like that keeps coming up with a lot of senior citizens that I talk to.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
We'll take that into consideration. Thank you.
So, but thank you very much. It was great, great information. Thanks.
Thank you for your presentation. I was interested, did you guys look at taxes at all? I mean, in your work, maybe outside of Ridgewood, is there any creative solutions to lowering taxes that you may have came across? Because it seems that directly impacts affordability. In a sense, it drives rent prices and home prices and everything else. So if somebody simply can't afford to live somewhere, you could have all the amenities in the world, but they're still going to have to move. So I was wondering if you came across anything that would kind of help relieve some of that burden for older residents.
That is a great question, because that is sort of the crux of the problem. Unfortunately, there's not much that our land use organization can do about taxes. But I am sort of in the process of trying to compile examples of sort of things that innovative things that towns have done, and there are some examples of program that I'm sorry I can't recall at the moment, but there are very limited examples of programs or like public-private partnerships and things like that, largely to create more housing at affordable rates, but taxes other than sort of like the state programs, it's tricky. And bringing, you have a good business district, so bringing more commercial tax base is something that a lot of towns are trying to do to ease resident taxes. But I'm sorry, I have not I have not figured out that cracked that nut yet.
We'll keep working on it.
Yes, thank you. But I will share, we are compiling those kinds of sort of resources of like case studies and examples, and I will be sharing that when we are complete.
That'd be interesting and helpful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I had exactly the same observation, is that taxes often drive affordability, and we're facing some big referendums in Ridgewood, potential referendums, and that will significantly impact affordability for many of our seniors that are looking to age in place. And so these are things that really need to be looked at and seriously considered. So I wonder if you had that magic bullet as well. And I have to agree with Councilman Walsh. I think that for many, because folks are living longer and they're healthier and they're far more capable, they do look for employment opportunities within their community, within a proximity that they're comfortable traveling, and that gives them an additional avenue to socialize as well. And so there's a lot of interaction there and opportunity. But I know you're coming to the planning board, I think in a couple of weeks, and I understand that you traveled the farthest last week to find out that there was no meeting. So again, I appreciate that and appreciate that you came back this evening.
That's okay, it's no problem.
So I think we'll take a look at this, and we'll, you're going to be a planning board when NB5 is there as well. So I think we'll kind of look. I think there's a lot of crossover on this. There's a lot of similarities in some of the outcome. So we really appreciate it, and we'll take a look at all of it.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, our first discussion item, Ridgewood Water awards sole source contracts, exchange of GAC vessels at Carwell. As you recall, the car treatment plant came online after the installation of granular activated carbon treatment for the removal of PFAS compounds. This filter media consists of carbon-based product. It's manufactured by Calgon Carbon Corporation of Pennsylvania, and that filter media will require replacement annually. Therefore, Mr. Calby's recommendation is to award a sole source contract to Calgon Carbon of Moon Township, Pennsylvania, in an amount not to exceed $128,000 for the year 2020. Funding for the purchase is budgeted in the 2020 water operating account. Excuse me.
Bless you.
Thank you. The next item is customer billing portal communication and consumption analytics software. This is WaterSmart. So we did go out to bid for this. One bid was picked up and one bid was received. The sole bidder was Rio Supply of Sicklerville, New Jersey. They are a reseller of WaterSmart. The recommendation is to award a 3-year contract to the sole responsible bidder, which is Rio Supply, in the amount of $66,450 for year 1, $43,800 for year 2, and $45,060 for year 3. We're just awarding year 1 at the moment. Funding is in the water utility operating budget of each year. So, and there's also, the reason why the first year is so high is there's a one-time setup fee of $23,700. The next item is award of contract, National Cooperative Purchasing Agreement, Materials and Supplies. This is a resolution for the purchase of materials and supplies under the National Joint Powers Alliance Cooperative Purchasing Contract, and for facilities maintenance, repair, and operating related supplies, for safety-related equipment and supplies, accessories, and services. We anticipate that we're going to exceed the statutory limit of $17,500 for the year 2020. So therefore, it's to award it to Granger out of Plainfield, New Jersey, in an amount not to exceed $85,000. And this again is in the water operating budget.
All good.
The next one is furnishing corrosion inhibitor. This is a sole source award also. The lead and copper rule from NGDEP mandates that Ridgewood Water maintain a corrosion control program. Corrosion control is a treatment process in which small amounts of phosphate inhibitors are added to the water in order to prevent corrosion. They create a thin coating inside the plumbing materials, so therefore it prevents the corrosion of lead and copper into the water. In 2013, Ridgewood Water implemented a pilot program utilizing polyarthophosphate to control corrosion in the system. Based on its success, Ridgewood Water installed the inhibitor ESC 532 at all of the active treatment facilities. The installation was completed in April 2016, and it is used at all points of entry for Ridgewood water. ESC Environmental uses a unique blend of polyphosphates and orthophosphate that is developed and distributed solely through their company. Therefore, the recommendation is a sole source contract to ESC Environmental of Glenville, New York, in the amount of $175,000 for the year 2020, and the funding is in the water operating account. The next item is under parking. We want to discuss Saturday parking of permit holders in all lots. It's always been the policy that residents who purchase the RPPs can use them not only for commuting, but also in the lots on a Saturday or in the evening. It's also been the policy that if they are parking with the RPP in the lots, that they can stay for as long as they wish, and not just the 3-hour time limit. This allows a resident, for instance, if they came to Ridgewood on a Saturday, they could shop, have lunch, and then go to a movie, and not have to move their vehicle. The ordinance is not clear on these policies, although, like I said, this has been the practice. The recommendation is to amend the ordinance to indicate that the RPP may be used at any time to park in the lots without a time limit. In addition, the amendment to the ordinance would indicate that the resident parking with the RPP in the lots cannot park in the shopper diners or the CBD employee parking spaces, except we recently did an ordinance which allows them to park in the CBD employee spaces after 6 p.m. So that basically would be what we're recommending, is that what we do in practice is what is actually in the ordinance. This is up for discussion. I don't know if the council's in favor of it. Like I said, it has been the policy since we established the RPPs back in, I don't know, 2015 or whatever year it was. Maybe it was even before that, probably.
So this is for the people who buy what was the cost now, $1,300, $1,350 for the train station?
Correct.
Is that it? It doesn't include the people who park at Chestnut, which
all
is...
all of them. Anyone who has a permit.
Oh.
Saturday.
Okay.
Right. So it's like on a Saturday, if they commute Monday through Friday, they could use it in the evening. If they came to dinner, let's say on a Wednesday night, they could use that instead of paying the meter or the kiosk now. Or if they came into town on a Saturday and wanted to spend the day doing various things. So basically, again, it's allowing them to park in a space. It's not specifically shopper diner or CBD employee. They can stay there in that space without having to move after 3 hours.
But just to, so if somebody has the Chestnut lot sticker, they actually can't park in the train station lot, for instance, right? Because one is a premium, one is not, so they can park in a lot that they're permitted to park in for those.
I believe on Saturdays and in the evenings we haven't limited it, but if you wish to do so, we could.
No, I wouldn't want to limit it. I mean, I could see the train station being a premium Monday through Friday, but a lot of people don't commute on Saturday, and there's sometimes there's spots at the train station, so you know, why limit it really?
Anyone else?
Yeah, I mean, I would say on a Saturday, just like on a Sunday, if they have the permit, you can park in any lot.
Yeah.
As long as you have a permit, because the train lot is really for shoppers and diners on Saturdays.
Yeah.
There's rarely.
Right, there's really
I mean, there may
anyone,
be
right.
people that commute, but I think it's really, shoppers, diners, and residents that have the resident permit that can park there anytime, as long as there's a space, so. Just like anybody else, that they would at least get to park there. Might be the only perk that they get. They're paying up front for that big,
And it makes enforcement easier.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
True.
Yeah.
So everyone's okay with this?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, great. Okay, so West Ridgewood Avenue, 15-minute parking spaces. So as you know, there are 4 parking spaces in front of where the wine cellar is. All 4 of those spaces actually have been memorialized in the village code, so they are all legal spaces. I know that there was a request from a resident who felt that there was a backup there and that people couldn't make the left-hand turn. It happens, as we found out from the police department's investigation of that area, usually in the morning for about 20 minutes and then around 3 o'clock, 3:30 for about 20 minutes. Those are when those backups occurred. So the businesses, because we did go out back in, I think it was July, to ask the businesses about this, and they said that they would be very concerned if these spaces were removed, as was stated previously by Mr. Rosenzweig, due to the fact that people use them to go into the wine store to pick up a to-go order from Puzo's, to go to Davis, where often, as he indicated, they're elderly people, and it's difficult for them to walk a long distance, but they can certainly get into the store and back within the 15 minutes because the parking is so close. So we just want to put this to rest and make a decision. You know, are we going to remove, because that was a request, was to remove 1 or 2 of those spaces so that there wouldn't be as much of a backup, or are we going to leave them as is in the village code, and, you know, the businesses obviously want us to have them remain. So
Heather, I'm just still having a problem where the 4 spaces are, and I see on,
Here, these are
because on 265, it says the 2 spaces closest to Washington.
no 2 metered spaces closest to
between
Wilsey.
Washington Place and Wilsey Square.
Wilsey. Here,
Let me see.
this one here. And then this is the other one.
So let's just say,
This is the other one.
and so the other one is the 25 feet from, okay. So
Yeah.
let's just,
Right, right.
why did I misread that one?
They all sound the same. You have to look for the specific,
Correct,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would be in favor of just keeping it as it is, because, I mean, I'm sorry, between 3 and 320, all of Bergen County is
South.
backed up, and you can't get around really anywhere. It's not just that one intersection, so the businesses need the spaces. I say keep them.
Okay. Anyone else?
Those 2.
I'm fine keeping the spaces. I'm
Keep-
okay keeping the
okay.
spaces, yeah. Mhm.
Okay.
And then this one's,
So why is this, is yours, let me just.
because they're different sides of the street.
No, I know, I'm on the south side.
This is Wilsey.
15. Okay. Is your paper different than mine?
Go ahead, take it.
26529. Oh, yours is different. I think it's different.
It's right here. This one here.
Mine's, okay, so mine just says the 2 meter space is nearest to Washington Place
Okay, that's
for
not
some
right.
reason. Why is it different?
I don't know.
It is different, okay.
No, you're down 2 lines, you're up 2 lines. West Ridgewood Ave South, 1/4, yeah, that's the one.
Right there.
You're up 2
That's the wrong one. It's this one.
with the quarter, 15-minute.
Okay. But that's a quarter also. So are these all, then all 4 of them are on here? Because that's the south, this is this West Ridgewood Avenue, south side. They're both on the south, so it's the exact same location. The 2 metered spaces nearest to Washington Place. The 2 metered spaces closest to Wilsey Square, between Washington Place and Wilsey Square.
Right.
So does that mean all 4 of them are in both chapters? Is that what that is? Because how could it be on the south side? It's exactly the same location.
Those are back before Washington
Behind,
Place.
right, before the Washington Place, I believe.
Further.
So west of Washington
West.
Place.
Correct.
And where is that written? Or is it not written? Because because we usually have like a line, we have,
It just says nearest.
do you understand what I'm saying? Is
Yeah.
it doesn't say that that's that, so I actually am reading two
So nearest is
lines that
ambiguous, is
actually,
what you're
right,
saying.
exactly. I think it needs to be, one of those has to be, probably the first one has to state that it's the 2 metered spaces nearest to Washington Place, west of
Washington Place.
Washington Place on the south side of West Ridgewood Avenue. So that has to be explained.
Okay, so we
Because
can
otherwise I'm
amend
looking at that and it's exactly the same 2 spaces in
Right.
reality.
Right, we can amend that.
Okay.
Okay.
So we do have to amend it just to add that.
That, right.
Okay.
But other than that, you're okay with keeping the spaces?
Yeah, I think it was important that we, it's interesting, I think it was important that we did this because,
Yeah, because this one says, so on 26570, it says from a point 25 feet east of Washington Place to a point 40 feet east thereof.
Right.
right, so there's no there's nothing to tell us that that's even,
But at least they spelled it out.
right. But on the other one, there's nothing that tells
Right.
us that it's west, it's on the south side, but
Yeah.
west of Washington Place to those first 2
Yeah.
spaces. So it just needs
Yeah.
to have that added.
Sure, we can do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
So that's what we'll do, is we'll amend that part of the ordinance so that's clear. And that's it, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
but you know what? You may as well, if you go up where it says Van Ness Square, the meter which is nearest to East Ridgewood Avenue is 15 minute. So you,
wait,
might
hang
wanna-
on, let me just go back.
the other
and then-
15-minute spot.
Now you're on which,
I just went up at Van Ness. It says the meter which is nearest to East Ridgewood
Oh, I
Ave, but
see.
it doesn't say before or after.
right.
Okay.
It has to
Yeah.
say which, even if it's on the west side, it still has to say whether it's south or north
Yeah,
of a certain point.
Yeah, because nearest
Otherwise,
could be...
right. It could be
Okay.
either direction.
Right, right,
It's funny.
Okay, we'll look at both of those.
yeah.
Okay.
Because it could be oak or walnut.
I
If you say nearest,
I
it
mean,
could be-
and
yeah.
maybe this is like an exercise just in housekeeping, to,
Yeah.
that we have to look at, because otherwise
Sure.
it's,
Yeah.
okay, good.
Okay, the next item is budget.
Wait,
Well-
so that was just a
Sorry.
housekeeping issue, just so you're comfortable. Okay, good, very good.
Is budget awarding a state contract for portable radios for the police department. We have the purchase of 10 radios, portable radios, under the state contract. And under state contracts, the vendor is Motorola Solutions, Inc. of Paramus, New Jersey. It's an amount not to exceed $31,660.50. It's being paid for through the police department's capital budget. These new radios will better interface with the radio system, and it has better fidelity of transmissions in higher noise environments. It's part of a multi-year replacement program, and after this purchase, a little over half of the officers will have upgraded portable radios, and we'll continue that in the future as well. The
Heather,
next one is the...
I have a
wait,
question on that.
Oh, sorry. Yep.
So, do we have, like, when we purchase mechanicals like this, they have a warranty on them, but do they have a life expectancy? Like, what is our, kind of our
I can find out.
process for the life expectancy on them?
Mhm. I don't know, but I will find out.
Thanks.
Sure. Any other questions? Okay. The next item is awarding a professional services contract. This is an annual contract for professional land surveying services for the certification, survey work, supervision, and assistance with preparation of the Village of Ridgewood tax assessment map for 2020. Our vendor is Daniel Dunn of Waldrop, New Jersey. The amount not to exceed is $1,700. It's probably been the same amount for the last 10 years. The retainer provides us with a New Jersey professional land surveyor to endorse our tax maps and provide the license coverage for the survey work the staff of the engineering division prepares for various construction projects, and it'll be paid out of the operating budget. The next item is awarding a contract for coach bus transportation services. There was a bid in January accepted for coach bus transportation services for senior day trips. 5 packets were emailed to vendors, 2 were picked up, and of the 2 bids, 1 was received late, and so it was rejected and mailed back without being opened. So it ended up being 1 sole bid. So they'd like to recommend that bidder, Panorama Tours of Wallington, New Jersey. It's an amount not to exceed $11,080 for the 2020 trips. They have worked with Panorama Tours in the past. They've consistently been on time. The drivers were very professional and courteous, and they've had an excellent working relationship with them. The next item is award of contract for diesel exhaust removal system. The Fleet Services Division received 3 informal written quotes for that project. They are recommending the award of the work to Clean Air Company, Inc. of Fords, New Jersey, in the amount of $20,586.03 as the lowest responsible quote. It'll be paid for through the capital budget. The next item is awarding contract under the New Jersey Cooperative Purchasing Program for GIS mapping for the Parks Department. So this is actually the shade tree inventory. So Ridgewood Shade Tree Commission and Parks and Recreation Department have partnered together for the shade tree inventory. It'll help us better understand the composition, structure, and maintenance needs of what we have, allocate resources, qualify for financial grant assistance, develop risk management strategies. Using a GIS mapping unit, it will be used in the field collection to identify various characteristics of each street tree. So these are not park trees, these are not private trees, these are street trees. The anticipated visual assessment of approximately 12,000 street shade trees will be conducted to the state contract holder Civil Solutions of Hamilton, New Jersey, and their partner, Davie Resource Group. It's an amount not to exceed $56,215. A recent grant that we received in the amount of $10,000 will be put towards this, as well as $50,000 funding, which has been verified in the capital budget account.
So I actually wanted to say that it was so important to point out that these were street trees, village-owned street trees, because, and the reason we were emphasizing that is on Facebook, the suggestion was that we had exactly 12,000 trees in the entire village of Ridgewood, and that was the inventory. So you can't always believe what you read on Facebook, but that is the street trees.
Well, again, as Mr. Keller brought up before, we don't even know exactly how many street trees we have.
Right.
It's just anecdotal evidence from
Right.
people who've worked in the village and drove around. We've heard 15,000, 12,000, maybe it's more, maybe it's less. Nobody knows, but now we will know, and it'll be an immense help to us going forward.
It's
to help
going to be
manage that
fabulous.
resource.
Good, great, thank you.
It's exciting.
It is exciting, actually.
The next item is declaring property surplus. It's the 2011 Ford Crown Victoria from the police department. This vehicle is in constant need of repair, and the cost of needed repair exceeds the value of the vehicle. The fleet department has inspected it and agrees that it cannot be repaired or rehabilitated. It went from the police department to the building department, and now it's in a condition where it really can't be used by any of the other departments, and they can't benefit from using it. It will be declared surplus and turned over to Enterprise LLC and sold at public auction according to state law. Proceeds from the sale will be credited to the Ridgewood Police Department account with Enterprise, where we lease vehicles. This is as I said, a 2011 Ford Crown Victoria. It has over 100,000 miles. And the motor pool number is 029, and it's past its life expectancy.
Is this our last Crown Vic?
I don't know. I think we may have another one.
You disappointed?
We're close. We're close.
Oh, you want it?
Maybe.
It's a tool around town car.
Okay, the
Probably
next
for
one
10 people.
is maintenance of equipment and related services for police vehicles. This is actually police, fire, and emergency services, and it's for the maintenance of emergency radios, equipment, vehicle, computer systems for those three divisions. This is the second optional year of a contract for it, and it will be awarded to the original sole bidder, Regional Communications of Paramus, New Jersey, not to exceed $30,000. The next item is the Appropriation Reserve Transfer Resolution. This is an annual resolution which transfers money from those departments who have extra money to those departments that do not have enough money to pay the 2019 bills. The next one is the paving of South Broad Street. This will be a bond ordinance. It's for a total of $216,000, and actually we've received a $210,000 grant from the NJDOT for this, but we have to appropriate the full amount and then we get reimbursed. And then so $6,000 will come from the general capital fund balance account. The next one is also a paving one for Spring Avenue. It's a total of $180,000. Again, we received an NJDOT grant in the amount of $175,000, and then $5,000 will come from the general capital fund balance account. The next one is a deferred school tax. This is an annual resolution, and it allows for the maximum deferral, which is the most favorable position to take since it increases the village's fund balance account and will help offset any restrictions from reserve accounts which may arise from 2018 financial operations. The next one is our awarding contract, state cooperative purchasing program. Amending the capital budget is the next one. This is for the two paving, South Broad Street and Spring Avenue. We have to amend the temporary capital budget because we haven't adopted our final capital budgets yet. So that's it for that one. The next one is the awarding contract under the state cooperative purchasing program for 2019 Ford F-250. The Water Pollution Control Division has extra capital funds for vehicles. The pickup to be replaced is a 2009 Ford F-250. It's identified as truck WP53, has significant underbody corrosion due to the environment at the plant. Purchase is through the New Jersey State Cooperative Purchasing Program to Route 23 Auto Mall of Butler, New Jersey, in an amount not to exceed $36,846.
Heather, can I stop you for a second? Did we pass over the Maple Park field lighting?
No, we removed that from the agenda.
Oh, so then that gets removed from this resolution, too?
There are two separate resolutions. We're just doing the paving one.
Oh, but, okay.
We're just doing the paving.
Okay.
Okay?
See, that one is removed.
The next one is drainage work at 220 Chestnut Street, the Fleet Garage. Streets Fleet Services Division solicited and received 3 informal written quotes to make corrections to our drainage system at 220 Chestnut Street. They recommend the award to Conquest Construction, Inc. of Westwood, New Jersey as the lowest quote, and that's at $26,430. The next item is printing for the municipal election. Because it's municipal, the village pays for all of the printing. It includes the election materials, the ballots, the labels. For the sample ballots, they deliver them to the post office. They print the sample and mail in ballots in English, Spanish, and Korean. Election expenses are exempt from the public bidding law, and we have used Royal Printing Service for the 2016-2018 municipal election and the referendum election, which we held in 2016. We've been very pleased with their work. They've also been used by Bergen County for printing for the primary and general elections for several years. So I asked them for a quote, and they came back at amount of $19,800 for the printing. That's actually the exact same amount that they charged us in 2018. So they haven't increased their price in 2 years. So I'm recommending the contract for all the required printing, as well as the printing and preparing of the sample ballots for the 2020 municipal election to Royal Printing Services of West New York, New Jersey, in an amount not to exceed $19,800. The next item is declaring surplus of various equipment for the Parks and Recreation Department. It includes things such as hedge trimmers, regular trimmers, gas edgers, push mower, leaf blower, power washer, backpack blowers, power sprayer, power broom, Toro Groundmaster, log splitters. This is now being done through, once they're declared surplus, instead of, we used to use GovDeals, we now use Municipid, because that is the one that's approved by the state under the state purchasing system. So we will put these on to auction under that Municipid website.
Do we know how old all this equipment is? I don't even know what a Shindaiwa power broom is, but do we know like how old this stuff is?
We can find out. Right. Yeah. Okay. So the next item is the update on the status of the bathrooms at Graydon Pool. So I think I'll have Nancy Bigos, our Director of Parks and Recreation, come up in case there are additional questions. So, as you know, Connolly and Hickey worked on the overall scheme for the Graydon Pool bathrooms. We're finally getting them basically upgraded, painted, new, what else, fixtures. And so basically, we have partitions, as you know, in between each of the changing areas for the, I'm assuming it's for the bathroom stalls as well. So when the contractor removed the partitions, they have plastic pieces, and they literally started to disintegrate. When Connolly and Hickey looked at them originally, they thought they would be fine to put back in. We realized we can't do that. So it's $30,000 for getting the new partitions so that everything is going to look upgraded. Otherwise, right now we can't use the former partitions because, as I said, as we took them down, they were just, and they've been here at least since 1979. So it's been a long time.
Surplus.
So what we have to do is a change order for $30,000, and as the contractor told us, certainly we could put, somehow try to jury rig these new old partitions in, but if we did, first of all, that would be the first visual. You'd see a nice painted area, and then you'd see these old partitions. The second thing is, I don't know if they'd stay up. And then he said, and he's right, because he has to remove them anyway to do the painting, it's cheaper than if we went out later to replace those partitions, because then they'd have to take them out and put them in. They have to take them out anyway as part of their bid right now. So that's what we're looking at, is a $30,000 addition to this contract. So
I mean,
we don't have a choice, I don't think.
Just my opinion. I mean, I just think that we're doing it now, and in the long run, it might cost us more. So we have it all open. We're doing the work. Why,
right?
Just let's get it done and get it done right.
Exactly, and it should last, decades after this. So we're looking forward, and we have a May 1st, I believe, deadline. So the contractor is working and getting things done, so that's the good news.
And that's the other thing, too, because if we then decide to go back and reinstall the old ones and we run into a problem, we might mess up on our deadline.
We will run into a problem.
We'll run
because
into a problem,
they
right,
are,
and we don't want that to happen.
Exactly. Okay, and when, since Nancy's here right now, if we could just also do the update on the pickleball court.
Can I just ask one question on going back to graded? Can we get an update on the historic designation? Connolly and Hickey, they were working on that. Was Janet? For the life of me, we used Connolly Hickey because we were in that process.
Mm-hmm.
I don't recall when we had an update or where we're at with that.
Okay, I will get that to you.
Thank you.
I think it is historic, but don't quote me. I'll double check that.
Do you know, Nancy, did we ever get, I just don't recall. It's possible we have it.
I'll let you know.
Okay, thanks.
So the next one is D4, the update on the pickleball courts. So I sent all of you additional information about Acoustic Fence, which is made out of Acoustic Block, which is being proposed for the pickleball courts at Glen School. Information from sound studies done with and without Acoustic Fence showing the reduction in the noise levels achieved. Noise was reduced 10 to 12 decibels in a sound meter test conducted by the U.S. Pickleball Association, and this is more than a 50% reduction in sound to the ear. I know Councilman Voigt had asked about a trial period to rent them. They don't do that. However, if we are not satisfied with their products, they will refund our money, but we are responsible for shipping them back to them, and it's approximately $1,100 to ship it back. So I think, we're convinced that this is going to be something that is going to benefit along with the muted balls, and certainly something we'd like to try. So we're hopeful that we can award this contract and be able to install them because, we had said to the neighbors that we're going to try to get this all done in time for when those courts will open and a lot of people will be playing.
Heather, what's the warranty on these? Do you know?
You know what? I would have to get back to you on that, Council. I had shared all of that information with Brian Duddy, our principal engineer.
Yeah.
So Brian's got the file.
Yeah. I'm just worried that if after 3 months they don't work, and then we've had them 3 months, and then we can't return them, that may be a problem. Just want to, if we can just find that out.
Well, they said they would take them back. A warranty would be more if it failed, like, if it peeled or it, cracked or something like
If
that.
it doesn't work, it failed. No.
Yeah. So, all right.
And you see the samples that are being passed down. That's what it looks like and feels like.
I would just like to make a recommendation on color. I hope we're going with the black.
Okay.
That's my first choice.
Oh, good,
Okay.
perfect. It just actually, the green always clashes with actually the green in nature, and this actually enhances the green in nature, so I think it's important that we do
Okay.
that.
So I just have one question in looking at these pictures, because the pictures are actually a good visual. So, and this is just a safety thing. So now you're going to basically obstruct the view of anything happening within inside the course.
It's on 3 sides.
It would be on 3 sides. And that's already happening, Bernie, because we do have windscreens on all of our municipal courts right now. So
Yeah.
the windscreens are only 2 feet shorter than these panels coming in would be.
So, but this looks like it's going to cover it completely.
It is opaque, yeah, you
Yeah.
can't see through it at all.
Yeah.
What you'll be able to see would be the bottom, right, people's legs,
Okay,
but that would be it.
okay.
So we have designed this to have the parking lot available so that you'll be able to see the courts from the parking lot.
Okay.
And it would be the 3 sides that would be adjacent to the homeowners' properties.
Okay.
Is there room to plant additional trees there? It might not be an immediate solution, but if, after a few years.
Well, that was actually something that Heather and I discussed earlier today when we reviewed our budget, which we'll be presenting to you in a few weeks. Additional shrubs by our municipal courts is something that our new park supervisor, Matt Andrula, and I are looking into.
Oh, good. Thanks
Yeah.
for that.
And it appears from the photos also that there's a tremendous amount of obstruction already because of the shrubbery that exists.
No, this is not us. This is some other place.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
just a
right.
random
Right.
example.
It's
There's
examples.
there's a palm tree there.
Wishful
There's a
thinking.
palm tree in Ridgewood, actually. I'll take that back, you're right. I just looked down real quick, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on.
They have to get that
Okay.
one
We're
in the
good with
tree
that.
inventory.
Okay, and if, again, since Nancy's here at this time, we'll do D5, which is the update on the grading pool hours of operation and also our efforts to hire lifeguards. So we have sent out to area high schools as well as to area colleges the help wanted ad for lifeguards. We have the hourly rate in there. We actually discussed that today as well. I believe it varies, because if they've been here before, they earn a higher rate. I think it was 1043 was the low end, and we're proposing 11 for the low end. And again, if they've been here a year or two or three or four, and some of them have been here more than that, they do get higher salaries than that. I don't think we have $18 an hour, but it does go up each year.
So, I guess, and I'm going to go to Mrs. Loving's, Ann Loving's point, but if we were to increase the rate somewhat, whatever, in some instances, we might in fact garner more adults, older parents that might actually say they would take that as a part-time. They might not do it for the $11, $12, but maybe they would take it for more. So is that something that we should look at?
Again, obviously we can do anything the council chooses to do, but by increasing the pay, it increases the budget. And then, ultimately taxes. So that's
actually, I wanted to interject. I didn't want to be guilty of age discrimination, because I don't disagree with that either. I didn't want to make that clear, but I don't disagree.
I think the biggest point is, if we're going to limit essentially a week, then we have to somehow discount, because if you're taking a week
again,
away,
this was a proposal. It wasn't, this is what we are going to do. This was a proposal, and if it doesn't, and the reason is safety, because of the fact that the lack of lifeguards. If, we're hopeful that this will get us more lifeguards, so we don't need to do that. We will open at the times we normally would during those 3 weeks. So, again, we're doing a more aggressive campaign to try to get more lifeguards. And, our hope, I know there's been contact made with one of the swim teams at one of the high schools as well. Perhaps some of them might be interested in being lifeguards at Graydon. So right now we've had a couple of inquiries. Unfortunately, they're not old enough. The minimum age is 16. And so we've had some inquiries from 15-year-olds. Unfortunately, we can't hire them as lifeguards. So, but anyone 16 and older, certainly we'd be willing to, entertain hiring you. There is training that you get trained. And the only thing with older adults, they have to be able to get up into the lifeguard chair. So I don't think I could get into a lifeguard chair. I'll be honest.
There's also a prerequisite in order for them to start the lifeguarding course. They've got to be able to swim a mile, and then other tests, physical endurance tests that we obviously would need for them to be in shape in order for a rescue.
Of course.
And older adults, there are older adults that can actually
Sure.
do just fine.
They certainly could. They certainly could.
Better than some younger adults, actually, right? Okay, all right.
Was there ever thought to maybe go out to some kind of temporary employment agency also? Just maybe, maybe there's some college kids or some younger people or middle-aged people or any people kind of looking for work that might be willing to go through the training to get a summer gig. I don't know.
I'm not really sure on that, Councilman. I do know that we've gone out to Montclair, William Patterson, Ramapo, Bergen Community College, Ridgewood High School, both the principal, the AD, Keith Cook, both varsity swimming coaches, in addition to Franklin Lakes, Midland Park, Northern Highlands, Paramus, Waldwick, Ramsey, Mahwah, Glen Rock, Elmwood Park, the New Jersey Pool Managers Association, and various other contacts that we have. We do have a PRC board member who is a staff member up at Ramapo, and she was able to put me in contact with their varsity swim coach up there, who happened to be a Ridgewood resident, so there might be some interest there. She's shared the information. So we are probably a month earlier than we would have been. We always start accepting applications for our returning staff on March 1st. We're ready to accept applications. We've got our training set. I've been in communication with the YM, who does a module program, which is a waterfront program, but when we bring them to Graydon, the differences are extreme. You know, Graydon is black water, Graydon is a rescue from the beach rather than a tow or a row. You physically have to get into the water, so we offer to our lifeguards the opportunity to take what we call as a bridge course. So if you're standard lifeguard certified, or you have a waterfront from one of the other facilities, we encourage you, we request that you take the bridge. That way you are certified in our facility with our staff and our rescue procedures.
Oh, good. So, I mean, that sounds like you've gone out pretty extensively, but, you know, we'll see what we get, but I would agree with Councilwoman Walsh that there should be, if for whatever reason we just can't get the lifeguards and we do have to end up closing for some period, that there would be some sort of way to just discount.
So we've been creative in the past. I know that you're aware of this, where there have been times when we have had to close the section along Maple Avenue. There are times that we actually sweep and maybe just have the kiddie area open. We let those that wish to sunbathe at the deep end without swimming. So, you know, we've always been creative in our scenario, obviously, with safety always being our first priority. Just to give you a little bit of background, how the conversation started was at the end of the season. I do sit with my administrative staff, my management staff, and we critique the summer. You know, we evaluate our staff, we evaluate policy and procedure, we look at our groups that have visited, if we need to make any changes in the rules. And one of the concerns that came up, and it does, I will share with you every year, which is, you know, some of the whining, I guess, that you will hear from me, is that safety is a concern in those preseason, 3 preseason weeks, when we have our college staff in, but they are working a double shift. So they will come in and be in the chair setting up at 11, and they will stay till close at 7:30. So that's a long day to be in the chair. They have 20 minutes on, 20 minutes off. We've got to state by the Bathing Beach Code, which governs us. The Department of Health does license Graydon Pool, and they do perform inspections, and we are to abide by the rules and regulations set forth by the state.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, I think we just have to work this in social media and everywhere else we can look. And
Okay.
I think social media is really one of the best tools.
When it's accurate.
I'm sorry?
I said when it's accurate.
Yes,
As
there are
you
not only
reminded us
12,000
today.
trees in the village of Ridgewood. Yes, thank you for that. But yes, we'll make sure it is accurate on this one.
Okay.
Take care of it. Thank you, Nancy.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
So we'll go back to D1, which is revisiting the winter door enclosure ordinance. As you know, the Village Council adopted an ordinance to permit winter door enclosures for existing restaurants in the CBD with dates of January 1st to February 28th or 29th. The Planning Board had recommended December 1st because it is the restaurant industry's holiday season. It is busy and the weather is cold enough to warrant its use during that time. In speaking with the restaurant owner, the winter door enclosures are quite expensive, and the additional month would allow them to get more use out of them. So we now have this up for discussion. As originally, we wanted to have a month where there was nothing on the sidewalks, so we could look at the sidewalks, make sure, you know, if there were any repairs to be done come spring. But, you know, I guess we could do that probably at any time, taking a look at the sidewalks. So the question is, do you want to amend it to allow it from December 1st, or do you want to leave it at January 1st?
My opinion, I mean, if you're asking me, I mean, I get what they're saying, and I do know they're expensive, and this has come up, for a while. But, I think that, what are the dates on the outdoor cafe?
March 1st to, right now, it's it's November 30th, I believe.
Yeah.
So, and presumably we spoke to Glenn, I guess?
Correct, yes.
Right. So I still think that it's good to have a little time where we see what's, the sidewalk and the clearing and what's going on there. And I think that was the piece, the basis for even amending the outdoor cafe ordinance, correct?
Right, because I think originally it might have been December 31st even for the outdoor cafes, so.
And I think, we find that the sidewalks really do need to at least be inspected and have some attention. So I don't even know, maybe he wants to, maybe we want to look at this and say maybe at least a week. There needs to me anyway, there just needs to be time for us to take a look at those sidewalks and make certain that they're clean and there's no safety tripping hazards, there's no divots or broken cement, broken brickwork or anything. I think that it was kind of an important.
So would you want to make it something like December 10th or something to February 28th, 29th? I don't know, I'm just asking.
I mean, the way I look at it is the whole reason that they're doing this is to keep inclement weather, primarily cold wind and whatnot, when they're doing a transition from outside to inside and people are opening the door. So the coldest time is typically all of December, all of January, and February, although this year has been a little bit different. So, I mean, if the intent is to have this up for only 3 months or in the coldest part of the year, then that would make sense. I mean, it would make sense to me. December, January, and February.
Well, the December, it's fall, it's autumn until December
21st.
21st.
Well, maybe just go with December 10th, because then that way you'll have a definite defined window where there's 10 days, and the inspector could, the schedules could be worked around where somebody needs to walk downtown. It's not going to take 10 days to walk through all of downtown. I mean, one person could probably do it in less than 10 days and look at the sidewalks, make sure they're in good repair or not.
Yeah.
And they can report back, and if we had to repair a sidewalk or do something like that, we'd be able to do it. But at least it gives us a time for a period where we could get village employees out there to do a quick assessment and then get back into it and put these things up, because you don't know how many people are gonna do this. Is it gonna be as well used as sidewalk cafes? Because sidewalk cafe is easy. You put a table and some chairs out. This is a bigger expense. Maybe like smaller mom and pop places might not want, and they're fine with their doorway the way it is. So I think it's another thing we'd have to see if this is really excessively used or if it's just a few places. But I think a quick window where you could do a safety inspection would be fine. Extend it a little bit.
If I may, Deputy Mayor, just as a suggestion, as part of the process in terms of the permitting for the either for the outdoor cafes or for the windbreaks on the entryways, you could make sure that since the responsibility and liability for the sidewalks in the commercial area are strictly with the commercial property owner or lessee, you could make that part that they get inspected at the time that they file for their permit and take care of it that way. That way there's no interruption, but you could also make it, take it from that standpoint, because otherwise if there's no outdoor dining and no chairs and tables out there, or if there's no entryway structure, they're going to be accessible anyway. So it's just for those limited ones that you're really worried about, are the ones who are looking for both of those opportunities that we give them in our ordinance. And it should be incumbent upon them and incumbent upon the permitting process probably to make sure that the sidewalks are in good shape at the time. If they're not in good shape, they don't get their permit until they fix it. So that's probably maybe even a possibility of a consideration. That way you don't have to worry about the dates, but just put it in the administrative aspect of the permit.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Mr. Rogers, thank you.
All right.
Way to go,
It's up
Matt.
to the board.
So I'm just not clear. Are we going with December 1st?
Right,
And-
but part of the permitting, right, we're going to leave it at December 1st.
Okay, so we'll change it to December 1st, because right now
Right,
it's January
to
1st.
make it December 1st, I'm
Okay.
sorry. And then we're going to add that from an administrative,
Uh-huh.
that,
There'll be an inspection as
Be an
part of the
inspection.
application process.
and
Okay.
repair. So if there's any
Yeah.
work that has to be
They
done,
can't do it.
they can't, I guess, install that until
Yeah.
everything is repaired.
Perfecto.
Good,
Okay,
that works.
okay. And actually, I think it probably should be done when they get their outdoor cafe permit, because most likely the ones that have the door enclosures will probably have an outdoor cafe, and only for the reason that they could then truly make the repairs right then. You know, if it's really cold in December, it may not be feasible for them to make a sidewalk repair
Yeah.
at that time.
So just as I guess the inspection should be part of every outdoor cafe permit then.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
In fairness.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And that makes sense, and so we can add that, and maybe we add that to the outdoor cafe ordinance, so that's part of the process.
Right,
Okay. Okay,
okay.
great, thank you. The next item is the occupancy ordinance, and it's regarding establishing an occupancy ordinance, which was requested by Councilwoman Walsh. So I'll let her speak to this.
So I included in everybody's packet a little bit of information about occupancy ordinances in other municipalities, just a couple of them in Bergen County and one from another town in New Jersey that's, I guess, similar to Ridgewood, just to give you an idea. I also included the fire code for residences, and then I had included an article basically just to kind of show what happens when planning isn't done before and it's done after. So we have a downtown that is going to be full, probably in another year. So I wanted to maybe get a jump on this before we get to that point. Most towns do an occupancy ordinance to make sure that applications or developments that are coming to completion, that they adhere to what they had proposed when they got their applications. So when they propose their applications to either the zoning or the planning board, they follow Uniform Construction Code, they follow the fire codes, they follow the HUD guidelines, because we are going to have an affordability element. So I'm hoping that we can maybe institute an occupancy ordinance that will kind of be a blending of all of those, specifically where we have to have certain minimums or maximums, and then kind of create it so that it fits within the village and what we need here. So I don't know if you had a chance to look through. It basically talks specifically about square footage of units. And like I said, usually when the developments are proposing to the planning board, zoning board, or any other board within town, they follow those guidelines already. So it's really just a matter of us crafting an ordinance that we would be comfortable with for the village of Ridgewood. So the HUD guidelines are what a lot of people use as a basis, but I had met with Chris Rudishauser briefly, and we talked about specifically the sewage lines that go down Franklin Avenue and that are going to be throughout the village in those areas. And he assured me that we certainly have capacity to handle all of the proposed units that are under construction at this time. So that's not a concern for us according to our engineer. So that's one thing that we don't have to worry about. But in terms of fire safety, and what was proposed, they follow these guidelines. So I don't think it's anything that's out of the ordinary that we're going to propose perhaps in our ordinance. So I don't know if anybody had any questions or if they read through. The towns that I chose, chose Allendale, which is a couple of towns over, Ramsey, which is a little bit further north, and then Franklin Township. And they all, if you look at them, they all pretty much stayed along the same guidelines in terms of square footage. And that seems to be the typical way to do it, by square footage.
You know, it's funny because as I was reading the information about the sewer, I almost had to, you know, it
Perfect example of not planning.
Well, you know, it's fascinating because when we were doing, I think Councilman Voigt, you were on planning board when we did the site plan applications, and we talked about the Franklin corridor and the 5-inch, and then the 5-inch reduced down to a 3-inch. And so they were going to be required to put the 5-inch, but that 5-inch was going to be reduced to the 3-inch. And it was like a head scratcher. And so how do we resolve that, and who's obligated to pay for it? And ultimately, it was us that was obligated to pay for, and I forget the term. I think Mike knows the term, or actually Councilman Voigt might recall, that we put that collar in and expand and expand the pipe, and it was really just a complicated, it was a complicated process, and it required digging up the street, and it you know, and it was a big sewage issue, and so certainly something we should, you know, we did think about, and it was, you know, a big topic of conversation. And quite some time ago, I think there was even discussion about occupancy ordinances, and I think we should absolutely have this on the books.
I agree, but the question is, how do you enforce this? What do you do?
Just like you'd enforce any
Access.
other ordinance. How do you enforce any other ordinance? You would,
Well,
if there was
Well, is there
a complaint, and
So you check it out.
yeah.
Yeah, so if somebody, you know, people are renting out the new apartments and are trying to pack them with people, we at least have a mechanism where if somebody complains and says there's
And then
10
you can
people
find
living in this apartment, you know, if we didn't have a mechanism in place, there wouldn't really be much you could do about it.
Okay.
So this would be
Right.
a way
Yeah.
to address that, I guess.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
So I think, I guess we should, this would have to go to our planner.
Yep.
And would we want this to, well, I guess we'll have to discuss the process involved in that and move it forward. I think it's a critical missing piece to the puzzle.
Yeah, I mean, out of all of them, I kind of like the way Allendale did it because they set it up, you know, kind of for the layman, and it was very basic, it was very understandable. You know, there was really no, you know, legalese. It was just, you know, a basic grid so that you could follow it. And like I said, when the applications came to the planning board, they proposed the different unit sizes based on these other uniform construction codes. And
Absolutely.
And for the affordable housing, the HUD. And I know that you guys have talked about that a lot with the special needs housing and
Yes.
what the HUD requirements are and affordable housing requirements are.
Different, but the same
Yeah.
premise.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So,
So do
Yeah,
we,
good idea.
I guess we'll put our, do you want to kind of review all this and?
No, I mean, I've read it already. I think if it's something to go ahead, I think you really should do as you say, contact the planner, have the planner look at it, see how it fits into our scheme of things as opposed to the other towns, and make some recommendations with regard to it.
Would it go to the planning board or no? It's not really land use, or is it?
It's not necessarily land use. It's more construction.
Okay.
So I don't think it needs to get
Okay.
planning board review, but
Okay, so I can give the planner this whole packet and indicate that, you know, look at something similar to Allendale's, because it seems to be pretty straightforward.
yeah, I mean,
And-
Ramsey wasn't much different, but the way that Allendale laid it out, I think was it was nice the way that they did the grid, and I think for us to do something similar,
Right,
whether
it's
our
kinda
square footages
simple,
are the
right.
same or not,
Mhm.
it was just easy to understand.
So what I could do is, give it to her, and if she has the opportunity to get it back to us by the end of February, or if not, the beginning of March, so that you could look at a proposed ordinance. And, she may have also some input, from other places. She's been a planner, and may have some other recommendations as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Thank you for bringing
Okay.
that forward. It's an important piece. Thanks.
Okay. The next item is accepting a donation to the community center. Each year, volunteers who are made up of Parks and Recreation staff and family members host a water table on Fairfield Avenue for the runners of the 10K during the Ridgewood Run. As a thank you, North Jersey Masters donates some of the proceeds to the community center to help fund programs as needed. So they are donating $1,000, and North Jersey Masters does not have any applications before any Ridgewood board or committee at this time. So that's nice. So now we jump down to the vehicle anti-idling policy resolution. The Village Council adopted a resolution in 2009 to put into place a policy to prohibit vehicles from idling. This is part of the Sustainable Jersey program and requires renewal every 10 years. At this time, the Village Council should consider this resolution for adoption again. It'll reinforce the policy and also be used for Sustainable Jersey recertification this year.
Heather, as part of this, I know there's signs in certain parts of town, but actually a couple of people have come to me recently and said that there are individuals idling in certain areas. I drove by those areas, there aren't signs, and
Okay.
I did notice a couple of cars waiting. Obviously, it's cold, they're picking kids up from school, and it's not in like the traditional idling areas. Do we have any other signs that residents could recommend if they witness people idling, or, because sometimes there's like pockets that unless you maybe live in that area, you don't know what the habits are. And I think people see different habits that maybe we don't, and it's simple to put a sign up maybe on another parking sign.
If you can let me know where those are, that would be helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard.
Well, have them recommend, people can recommend.
Yeah, I've heard the same thing. People have said that this briefly came up, and some of the signs were missed. It's been 10 plus years, so signs fall down or they get stolen. So they just print some up. We have the signs, we can just print them up. I'm sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, we can.
How does that impact people that have the little clicker that their car turns on and they heat it up? I mean, that's a serious question. Donna has one. You do have one. Yeah,
She warms the car up.
You warm your car up before you get in it, yeah. So,
It's a resolution.
It's a resolution.
I'm sorry?
Because it's a policy, it's a resolution.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Okay.
So, okay. So the next one is the amendment to the single-use plastic bag ordinance. So, although our ordinance is very comprehensive, we found so far a couple of issues that have arisen, and so we just kind of need some guidance. The current ordinance does not specify if the plastic bags that can be used 125 times must have that printed on the bag itself. We've encountered it where a business has a plastic bag and the distributor of that bag actually wrote a letter indicating that it is able to be used 125 times, which is the regulation. And California, who has it statewide, they actually have that same regulation. Our recommendation is that as long as we can get a distributor's letter that it's compliant, that it would be okay, and that it wouldn't have to be printed on the bag itself. So if you agree with that, then we're all right.
Yeah, fine.
Yeah.
I'll just say, I'm so proud of our village because I see everybody with their little sack of bags going into all the different shops throughout town and wearing backpacks, and so it definitely is something that everybody is embracing. Many are embracing, I should say.
Even Paramus.
Yeah.
So you think of all the retail they have there,
Yep.
and they do the same thing basically.
Yep.
So it's gaining traction.
The next item is, there's no section of the ordinance that states the enforcement officer's regulations. the recommendation is it be modeled somewhat after Paramus, who says that the health officer, and in our case it would be Department of Building and Inspections and the Health Department, have the authority to enforce the ordinance, including but not limited to investigating violations, inspecting any retail establishment or retail food vendors' premises to verify compliance, and issuing fines. So that's what we would recommend, that we have that in the ordinance. And then we also recommend that the health department be able to check the bags during their twice-a-year restaurant inspections, and stores that are not food establishments would not be inspected per se. However, if there were a complaint filed, then they would do it on a complaint.
Yeah, okay.
The thought is there would be some kind of flyer handed out to all the establishments so they'd be aware of it, kind of as a warning, like this is, what you must have. If you don't have it printed on the bags, and you have to have a distributor's letters that you can show us. And we need to, I think, define the fine. And so I know there's a general fine in the code book that leaves it up to the judge, or we could specify, for a first violation, it would be X amount, and then go up from there. I don't know which way the council wants to go on that.
Have there been many cases in front of the judge?
I don't think there have been any yet.
Okay.
But they really haven't, the inspections only start in January, so, they really haven't been to a lot of places yet. And we did encounter the one where the bag, again, we weren't sure if it was compliant, but we did get a distributor's letter, so we did accept that. But we think it needs to be in the ordinance, that it has to be one or the other, either printed on the bag, or they must be in possession of a distributor letter which they can give to the inspector.
I think from a fine standpoint, it's usually best, I think a lot of people appreciate the fact that you trust your judge and that you give them discretion, but it's usually best to give direction to the court and also state, as a matter of law, just where the exposure is going to be for any type of a violation. So I would, make a recommendation that we look at some of the other towns in terms of what their findings are, what their schedules may be on fines, and see if we find those appropriate for what we think we want to, project here in Ridgewood. The other side of it is that once we do that, we could also take a look and say that the fine not less than X for a first offense and something like that, and still leave it in the discretion of the court as to where to go with that. So
I think that's a good idea. That way, I think everybody's in agreement on the first few suggestions. Just if we come back with some kind of schedule, some sort of fine schedule, then we'd be able to make the amendments, I guess, all at once.
All at once,
Yeah.
okay. So we'll probably bring that back at the end of February, beginning of March. All right. The next one is the multifamily housing informational banners. So Mr. Ruthershauser was approached about the possibility of temporarily waiving the village's sign regulations with regard to the 4 multifamily housing projects that are under construction right now. Each of the projects would like to be able to provide people passing by each site information about the project and who to contact for more information. In addition, if you recall, Mayor Hache had said that he was interested in having banners put up by the development so that people knew what was going to be built there as they were passing by. So what Mr. Ruthershauser had indicated is perhaps suspending the enforcement of sign regulations for the banners, and they would still have to pay a fee for the real estate sign. So that's up for discussion.
Well, it seems that the banner would kind of just be a real estate sign, because how much information, if somebody's going to contact the developers, they're going to want to know what they can rent and how much it's going to be, and everything else.
Right.
I think at least Chestnut Village has like a picture kind of what it's going to look like, and they already have like little banners up now. So I don't know how much of a help additional banners would be, or if I'd be interested in helping developers rent their apartments.
Yeah, what I can tell you is that we've received a lot of calls about who do I contact, I'm interested in renting, and we really don't have that information at all. So certainly we could reach out and get that from the developers, who they want us to contact, or who they want people to contact. It's just, this would help, as if someone were passing by and saw it and said, gee, I'd like to live there. Who do I contact? And instead of having to call Village Hall, they could just look on the banner and there'd be a phone number,
So I mean, the housing market's a little rough for the multi-million-dollar houses. Should they be allowed to have a banner too? I mean, I just think that, the size of the sign, they should get a permit, put, real estate signs, and I mean, if people are driving by, they'll see the number. I think banners are just going to add to the confusion. People have to slow down. They have to read information. I think that it's just.
I'm just concerned how long you're going to stay up.
Yeah.
I mean, if these things are up for like 2 years, I mean,
It says 210 days.
210 days.
Yeah.
That's still a lot of time.
I'd also be worried about allowing banners for certain apartments or certain units that are being developed, and not allowing banners for others that are being worked on but are not at the same ilk, same type of development. I think basically you'd be providing advertising for these developments, which I think is a stretch sometimes in terms of municipal assistance, and in terms of trying to help the projects along.
So, I mean, I know that we're often compared to Morristown, and I know that there's a couple of developments that go up there, but they have like a single sign, and then if you go on, talk about a specific realtor, Lois Schneider Agency, if you go on, the first thing when you click onto her website, or onto that company's website, is they are the, realtor for the site. So it's a simple sign, and then it's just a website, just like, so we could maybe permit the size of a real estate sign that allows them to say, the
Direct to
Dayton
your website.
The Dayton, RidgewoodNJ.net or whatever the website is, and then it's their responsibility to provide the information on the website, and that way they just pay us for a real estate sign, and we might be able to, because I don't know if our specific, what are the rules for a real estate sign and what they can say.
It actually we have that.
So if it's their logo, or I don't know what.
I don't remember exactly off the top of my head what it is.
Yeah.
I know it's 30 days, I think, and then they can renew it for additional times of 30 days. So.
Yeah, so maybe just permit them to have, maybe for these specific instances, renew at a 3-month, and that way it's just a sign, but it's up there.
It's interesting that someone would call the Village Hall and not call, I don't want to give the plug to anyone, so I'll just say Joe Smith Real Estate Agency. I don't know if there's actually.
Yeah, if I was answering the phones in Village Hall, I'd say it's not a municipal project. I don't know. You're gonna have to find out somewhere else.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I mean, so I would imagine that if the development sites have an interest in getting information out, they would put up a small sign that has a website.
Yeah.
They have, social media to avail themselves of. They have lots of different places, but I think there's 600 realtors at one real estate agency in Ridgewood, and I mean, there's certainly enough people there to answer the phone. Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because we don't know who they may be doing it in-house.
Right.
And,
Right, if they're doing it that's right. So they're doing it in-house. Go to,
Yeah, follow the rules.
Right.
Yep.
Okay, so you would allow, though, a sign on each one that would indicate a website.
Real estate size.
Whatever our current code is applies to those sites as well. So they can go and get the information. They all know how to get the information on zoning, and they can get this sign ordinance.
Yeah,
Everyone
because if
agrees?
somebody drives by and it's simply, I'm just going to use the Dayton as an example. It says the Dayton and then has a phone number and a website, whether it's a Realtor website, Garden Homes
Right.
website, whatever
Right.
it is, gardenhomes.com,
Right.
and then you go onto their website. Like
Sure.
I said, this other Realtor that's handling this big development in Morristown, all you do is click on it, and it's the first thing she's got advertised, because obviously it's lucrative. So-
Okay, thanks. The next one is appointing Clean Communities Coordinator and Recycling Coordinator. These will be Sean Hamlin, who took over for Ed Bethune, and we want to actually make it retroactive back to November 1st of last year, because that's when Ed retired, and this should have come to us sooner, but it didn't, so we'd like to make it retroactive. The next one is approving joining the Somerset County Cooperative Pricing System. This offers pricing for heavy truck repairs for work outside the scope of our fleet division mechanics. It has several vendors. Mr. Rudestauser has recommended that the village join this cooperative, and because it will be the fastest way to obtain truck repair services that fleet services needs that have been competitively bid in the past. They had comments from Ridgewood residents, the Hohokus Chamber of Commerce. I know the Village Council adopted a resolution which was sent. They said, therefore, they sent it to the Exception Review Committee at New Jersey Transit. They were comprised of various high-level people. The department's Exception Review Committee received and evaluated the objections from Ridgewood residents and Hohokus businesses. They decided to create an non-enforcement trial period, which was January 1st to September of 2018. If you recall, there was enforcement, and then there was a 3-month time frame when there was no enforcement. They then received and evaluated a follow-up report from the enforcement, non-enforcement trial period, and in April 2019, they rendered a decision to establish Warren Avenue as one-way. So therefore, the commissioner of the DOT, based upon that memorandum of record from the Exception Review Committee, says that they adopt the recommendations of that team. And according to the administrator in Hohokus, who's had more contact with DOT throughout this process than we have, they've never really wavered from closing or one way. They started out saying they were going to close it completely. And then because of the comments, they decided that one way would be a compromise. And this is according to his interpretation of what they've said. They're looking to put, according to him again, shovels in the ground probably early summer. There's going to be times when it's going to be closed anyway, because they're going to be doing improvements to the track area, and as well as eventually, if this goes through, we'll have to create Glenwood Road as a one-way in the eastbound direction and give it to DOT. And I think it's about 2.5 to 3 years of construction and reconstruction, because as I said, they're going to do the track bed, there's drainage that has to be done, there's quite a few different things that they're going to have to do. So that's basically my update. I know that our residents are still very concerned, and I understand. I know we're also going to discuss information in closed session, so I don't know if there were any other comments from the council at this time.
How can we have better communication with Hohokus? I mean, there seems to be they're the ones that are talking with NJDOT.
I mean, I think that they're very good about telling us, for the most part. So he's been very helpful in letting us know. In fact, I think he was the one who got us invited to the meeting back when they first discussed it, which was where they discussed the quiet period, the enforcement period and the quiet period. And, he, through his engineer, brought us to the table at that point. DOT, in my mind, mistakenly thinks is a Hohokus issue only. It
Yeah,
certainly is not.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, I'm having a tough time understanding how the Hohokus person is rendering opinions and decisions on the people who live up in the Woolwich School District. He has no...
He's not rendering decisions.
Well, he's making recommendations on changing this that are going to affect a lot of people that he has nothing to do with.
No, he has nothing to do with making that decision. It's NJDOT and New Jersey Transit.
Well, it sounds like he's had a lot of communication with them more than we have, and that's my big concern, is that how do we get ourselves inserted into the decision-making process so that we're making...
I think we have been during the time, with the enforcement, non-enforcement, and then we were, again, and I know that later this month we're also involved. So I think that...
This to me, Heather, is, I find it incomprehensible that you have these huge tractor trailers going up that road.
And it happens, right? Because
I actually, about 5 months ago, I stopped a huge bus, a bus that drives into New York City, going up the hill, and I said, you got to turn around. You can't even get up there. And I said, I'm going to report you. I'm going to take a picture of your license. You shouldn't be here. And there's an issue with GPS on this that needs to be fixed, and I think it is fixable. Well, and if we sat down with NJDOT and talked about this is one thing that could help immensely.
Right.
And then I think the enforcement, both on our side and on Hohokus' side, in enforcing the issue of, trucks going up that particular bypass. It happens all the time, and it's going to create a huge issue for the people in the Woolwich school area. It is, and it's going to make a mess of our town, because all of that traffic is going to go right into West Glen. We need to figure out a way to fix this with NJDOT. I think we really do.
And during that 6-month period of enforcement, there was enforcement by both Hohokus and Ridgewood.
Well, I think it needs to be more. It needs to be more regular, and it needs to be at times where people get the message that you don't do it. You don't stop on the tracks. You don't have trucks going up that. I think it's been really sporadic, and I think if we were much more diligent about this, I think people will get the message and they wouldn't do what they're doing.
So, Heather, my concern, as I mentioned before, in all of this, in bold letters, they say further directs, like they have complete control, further directs us.
Right.
The commissioner further directs the Village of Ridgewood should adopt an ordinance designating in one way in the eastbound direction, adopt an ordinance that will take approximately 60 days,
Right.
So my big concern, again, is that, are they going to, us continuing the conversation, are they going to consider, punitive damages to us that they'll just close the road and really put us in a pickle? Like, not knowing the kind of the parties that we're dealing with, you don't know how they're going to behave, and then that could really put us in a bind.
If they completely close it, is what you're saying?
Close it,
right,
yeah.
and they still have that option, obviously, because again,
I know, but
and that's a concern.
So I talked to the woman 2 weeks ago, this Ms. Ferran, and I said, you know what's going to happen? And I said, this is what's going to happen with our streets. Have you looked at that? Do you understand? No, she didn't even realize what the ramifications of it were. They need to know that.
So I just wanted to go back, and I wanted to, maybe Heather, you'll remember and refresh my memory. I know at one point we discussed as an option, and I don't recall the reason it was not doable, of putting some kind of a height restriction gate, and I don't recall, because we discussed it, we looked at what the options were, we looked at whether or not it was mechanical, whether or not it was stationary, permanent, and non-mechanical, and I had only noticed that somebody asked the same thing on in a Facebook thread, and I didn't recall the reason But these are maybe these are things that, maybe we can compile a list of additional measures that we could implement as a good faith gesture to help them understand that we recognize their concerns, and we certainly would share their concerns from a safety perspective, but we also understand that taking this type of an action, while they might be resolving what they perceive to be a safety issue, and we'll see when we get a response to those OPRA documents, but they might actually be creating other safety hazards that, as a result of this action. So perhaps we can put our thinking caps on again and revisit that gate system that prevents a bus from going through, a truck.
It was discussed, but there was an issue, and I don't recall. I'll have to talk to Chris, because I know he was the one, I think, who brought up the concern.
And for some reason, I think that Chief Van Gorm may have been in that conversation. I don't recall, but I do know for a fact that we discussed it, and there was some reason that it was felt it wasn't a good option, but maybe it is a good option, and maybe we can come up with some good, solid solutions to offer, at least to mitigate their concerns.
Let me find that out.
Okay.
Okay.
Heather, is there a way that we could quickly put our, maybe for the next week, put our speed, just so we can count cars to see how many people come down, and come back and forth every day? Because I don't think we've ever gotten the number.
Mm-hmm. I can find out.
That would be, obviously they're meant for speed, but it would count the cars for us. Yeah.
Sure.
And did we ever dispatch our portable signage to say, maybe that's something else we could be doing simultaneously, is just dispatch that,
trucks.
The sign truck, whatever
Yeah,
it is.
but that goes back to
trailer.
bad behavior. We have signage all throughout the village, and people still do U-turn.
Look,
it's
I mean-
shocking to watch some people drive. Signs, no buses, signs, no trucks, and they're still doing it, so.
But I think we need to see more of their reports and what they're basing this on, and then at least, because right now we just kind of have information here, but we don't have it in the context of what their observations are.
And again, I think we need to get ourselves inserted into the process more actively in this.
We were very much involved, and they had their quiet period. They let everything ride, and I, quite frankly, was stunned when I saw this. I thought they kind of went, okay, it's all good.
I did too.
I really
actually.
thought that
I thought that
we
myself.
came up with a viable solution, and that, because obviously if we implemented certain safeguards and they didn't say anything one way or the other, we never heard from them, and the whole point was to keep it open both ways. That was the objective. I really was. This came out of left field for me, because I thought
I was
good.
Very
They're not
surprised
pursuing
myself.
this any longer, and I think that was a reasonable idea that they weren't no longer
And just so you know, I did contact the administrator in Hohokus, and I said, "Is this all you got?" Back in May, and he said, "Yes, this is the only report that he got. He got nothing. He didn't get backup. He didn't get any other information from them." So he also was surprised, because their chamber had opposed it. They had also done strict enforcement, as we had during that 6-month period. And again, they got no backup either, and they got exactly what we got, which just basically says, this is our order, this is our decision, and this is what we're going to do. So.
Well, I think and go back to Councilwoman Walsh's point about the counter and putting that, dispatching our signage, and at least for the moment, while we're trying to work through this, let's be proactive and show them that we're taking this seriously.
Yeah.
Okay.
And also count the number of trucks that come up and down that hill.
Well, hopefully there's none, but.
Hopefully
Yeah,
there's
but,
none.
no, you're right, but I mean, if that's the case, and that's a major issue that needs to be, I mean, that's one of the main things that needs to be resolved here is, how do you get trucks off of that bypass?
Yeah, I think the question is, let's find out what the reasoning was that Chris or whoever it was in the
Right.
meeting said that we couldn't do that
I have that, yeah.
Height.
I'm going to find out.
the height barrier,
Right.
Whatever.
Right.
Okay.
That would stop them if they thought they'd take the top of the truck off, right?
Yeah, maybe some of them.
Well, they get stuck, is what happens. They
You get
bottom
stuck.
out.
Right, then they have to let the air out,
Yeah.
right?
Every once in a while, they
Okay.
get stuck at the train station.
Yeah.
So on past
Yep,
two,
they
somebody
bottle
thinks
them,
they
yeah.
could kind of get through and they can't.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
it's bad behavior.
So we're working through, we're trying our best.
Okay.
Okay.
We probably have it. Is it in the book on the side?
What do we have?
Is the
that,
report in the book on the side? The
why don't we do just
transparency
one-
binders?
Can we just give them one of ours here?
Sure,
Mike
sure.
has
We
this.
could do
Here you
that.
go. Who's got it? Mike has it right there.
Okay, so the next item is reviewing of February 19th public meeting agenda. We have 3 proclamations, Dad's Night Days for both Hall School and Somerville School, Read Across America Day, and Super Science Saturday. We have a resolution for temporary capital budget for paving. We have resolutions for Ridgewood Water Awards Sole Source Contract Corrosion Inhibitor Awards Sole Source Contract Exchange of GAC Vessels at Carwell. Title 59 Approval and Award of Contract for Customer Billing Portal Communications and Consumption Analytics Software, and awarding contract under National Cooperative Purchasing Contract Materials and Supplies. We have introduction of ordinances, a bond ordinance for the paving of South Broad Street, a bond ordinance for the paving of Spring Avenue, and I don't think we're ready yet for the amendments to the single-use plastic bag ordinance. We'll bring that back later. Public hearing, bond ordinance for street paving and streetscapes and security for village-owned facilities and buildings, parking utility bond ordinance for environmental cleanup for Hudson Street parking lot, amend Chapter 212 Parks and Recreation Areas, rules and regulations for tennis courts, for pickleball, amend Chapter 190 Land Use and Development, requirements for lettering on signs, amending Chapter 165 Garbage Refuse and Recycling, bulk refuse definitions, and amend Chapter 165 Garbage Refuse and Recycling, container specifications, and set out requirements. Resolutions approving the 2019 budget reserve transfers, awarding a contract for diesel exhaust removal system for Fleet Services garages, award contract for printing for the municipal election, awarding a contract for sound panels for the Glen pickleball courts, Title 59 approval and award of contract for coach bus transportation services for the 2020 senior day trips, Title 59 approval and award of contract for the installation, service, and repair of police, fire, and EMS equipment and radios, awarding contract under state contract portable radios, award contract under state contract GIS mapping services for tree inventory, award contract under state contract 2019 Ford F-250 for the water pollution control facility, award contract drainage system at 220 Chestnut Street for the Fleet Services garage, award professional services contract 2020 land surveying services retainer for preparation of tax assessment map, authorizing the membership in the Somerset County Cooperative Pricing System, the deferred school tax resolution, accepting the donation for community center from the North Jersey Masters, confirming commitment to anti-idling of village vehicles, appoint Clean Communities Coordinator, appoint Recycling Coordinator, and declaring property surplus for the police department vehicle, and also declaring property surplus for the Parks and Recreation items. And that's it. Does anyone want any of that off of the consent agenda? Okay.
Okay, we're good. All right. that, we'll go back to public comments, not to exceed 5 minutes per person.
Good evening, Boyd Loving, 342 South Irving Street. I'd just like to make a couple of comments about those things that were said about Graydon tonight. The first thing regarding the bathroom renovation project, I believe I made a comment before that this was awarded to the lowest bidder, and I believe this will be change order number 2. The first change order dealt with the roof, that the person, the contractor indicated that she did not know that there were going to be some underlying defects in the roof until they started work. I made a comment that perhaps their inspection process could be a little bit better. This business about the panels, though, the modesty panels, that's in full view. I don't know how they missed that. When you go inside the bathroom, it's clearly obvious that those panels were made out of the materials that they found. It's not like they were hidden someplace and couldn't see those until they dug something apart. So this $30,000 that we're going to spend, I agree it needs to be done. We want the place to look good. But still, I have an issue. I take issue with these contractors who always find something a little bit later on, particularly with something that is in plain sight, that they knew when they walked in that these panels were made out of some sort of plasterboard, and why they couldn't recognize that when they started to work on this it was going to fall apart, I don't know. So maybe we can negotiate this $30,000 to be a better price because, in my opinion, they are partly at fault for not seeing this. The other comment I want to make about Graydon is that I echo what the deputy mayor said, that social media, when you are looking to attract young people to anything, use social media. I understand the director's concern that sometimes social media isn't accurate, but if you are controlling the content, if the Parks Department is making up the advertising themselves and posting it on social media themselves, why not do that? I'm a regular user of social media, and I have seen not one advertisement for the Parks Department yet looking for lifeguards. There's It Takes a Village, there's Moms and Dads with Free Speech, there's Moms and Dads, there's We Live in Bergen County. There are many places that this advertisement can be posted. If you drive up and down Ridgewood Avenue when high school is letting out, what do you see? You see people walking like this, looking at their smartphones instead of looking where they're supposed to be looking. So they are glued to the smartphones, posted on social media, and you will get people to respond. If you're trying to do something else, they're not going to see it. I was driving eastbound on Robinson Lane one day, and I noticed that every time you come to a corner, there are 3 stop signs on each corner. I wrote Mr. Rudishauser a letter and asked him if that is in compliance with the New Jersey State law or the New Jersey State Code with the Uniform Traffic Code. So there is a stop sign here, a stop sign here, and then across the street on the opposite corner there's a stop sign. If that is not in compliance with the Universal Traffic Code, is the village opening itself up to some sort of liability in the event that there is an accident there? I know what we're trying to do. We're trying to make sure that people know that they're supposed to stop, but there is a Uniform Traffic Code. Are 3 stop signs allowed on each corner, or is there only supposed to be 1? I'm particularly concerned about the stop sign that's over here, because what you're supposed to do is to stop at the stop sign. If you stopped at this stop sign, you'd be blocking the traffic on a cross street. So Mr. Rudishaus has not yet responded to me. There may be a reason for that. Rarely do I get a response from him. I would ask the manager to please follow up and ask the attorney to take a look and make sure that we are in compliance with the state's Uniform Traffic Code, because there are many intersections in this municipality where I see 3 stop signs in place. The other one is at Kenilworth and Spring. When you are driving southbound on Kenilworth, there are 3 stop signs as you approach Spring. Again, my concern is if there is an accident because somebody stopped where they really shouldn't have stopped because a sign is there, is the village liable or could be held liable for having something that is not in compliance with the traffic code. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Bob Upton, 172 West Glen Avenue. Maybe stating the obvious, but as far as the plastic bag ban and requiring merchants to have a letter confirming that their bags meet the 125 uses, I can see that it would be unreasonable to expect them to get the certification printed on the bag, because they may not have the influence on a supplier to do that. But I would encourage you to guard against the fact that somebody gets a letter and then substitutes a bag that doesn't actually comply with the letter. So there should be some way, maybe with a product number, to tie the two together. Thank you.
Anyone else? So we're going to close public comments, and just real quick, Heather, the contractor doing the bathrooms, all the bids would have been based on the same information specs that came from Connolly Hickey. So if Connolly Hickey said, and I understood that what was being said was that the pieces inside what was deteriorated and not usable, and that was subsequently the reason to replace them all. But on all of the bid specifications that everyone responded to were actually created by Connolly Hickey, so it wouldn't have mattered if it was bidder A, B, C, or D. They all would have done exactly the same roof or dividers. And the other thing is on the signage, the stop sign issue, I know the Kenilworth issue was after a number of really bad accidents, and we all met over there. And we'll check with Chris Rudishauser. My recollection is because we wanted to do a four-way stop, and that was not consistent with the Uniform Traffic Code. And so we went for the multiple signs and the back-to-back. So if you go to Spring, there's one on the opposite side that's actually double-faced, so it's far more visible. And I have to say, I think from my observation, because we're right over there, we all live right there, that it's been a significant improvement. And so I think that it may have been compliant, but we'll just double-check anyway. And with that, I guess we'll take a resolution to go into closed session.
Be resolved by the Village Council of the Village of Ridgewood that the Village Council meet in closed session on February 5th, 2020 at 7:30 p.m. or as soon thereafter as the matter on the agenda can be reached, and that said closed session be held in the caucus room of the Ridgewood Village Hall, 131 North Maple Avenue, Ridgewood, New Jersey. Be it further resolved that the matters to be discussed in closed session are limited to legal matters to include FMBA contract negotiations, the town garage, Glenwood Road, and affordable housing. These matters are allowable under NJSA 10:4-12 as sec. Be it further resolved that the minutes of this meeting shall be made available to the general public when such matters have been deemed completed by resolution of the Village Council. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you.
You can keep that. I got another one. You're welcome.
You're welcome.